So with that, we'll call the meeting to order, the February 3rd, 2021 SFO Airport Community Roundtable at 7 p.m. Very punctual. We're meeting via teleconference pursuant to various orders issued by the San Mateo County Health Officer and the Governor's Office, which discourage large public gatherings. We are meeting via Zoom. Joining us today, our staff to the roundtable: Angela Montes, Roundtable Administrative Secretary; Janet Lujan, Executive Secretary, San Mateo County Planning Department; Michelle Rodriguez, our Roundtable Coordinator; Justin Cook, our Technical Consultant from HMMH. We also have with us Linda Wallace, Senior Legislative Aide to Supervisor Dave Pine; Kathleen Wenworth, Senior Advisor to Congresswoman Jackie Spear; Burke and Og from and other staff from the San Francisco Airport Noise Abatement Office; Skylar on, and I think I saw Fabiola also from the FAA. So with that, I don't know if I missed anybody that needs an introduction, but at this point we will go on. Angela, please give us the explain how to participate in the public hearings.
Thank you, Chair Face. For those attending the meeting on the Zoom video conference, we will use the raise hand feature in order to organize any public comments. During the general public comment period and for each item on the regular agenda, I will ask those members of the public who wish to comment to click the raise hand feature to speak on that agenda item. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. When you hear your name called, I will prompt you to unmute your microphone and inform you that you may begin speaking. You will have 2 minutes. Please note that members of the public must wait in connection with each agenda item before using the raise hand function. For example, you cannot raise your hand during item number 3 if you wish to speak on item number 5. Written comments that were submitted in advance will be read by me during discussion of the appropriate agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will move to a roll call. Michelle, is that you?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
City and County of San Francisco Board of Supervisors. No response. City and County of San Francisco Mayor's Office.
Present.
Thank you. City and County of San Francisco Airport Commission.
Ivar Satero.
Thank you. San Mateo County Board of Supervisors.
Dave Pine.
Thank you. CCAG Airport Land Use Commission. No response. Town of Atherton.
Yes, I'm here, Widmer. Nice to meet you all.
Welcome, Mr. Widmer.
Thank
City
you.
of Belmont.
Tom McCune, present.
Welcome, Mr. McCune. City of Brisbane.
Terry O'Connell.
Thank you. City of Burlingame.
Ricardo Ortiz, right here.
Thank you. City of Daly City.
Pamela DiGiovanni.
Thank you. City of Foster City.
Sam Hindi.
Thank you. City of Half Moon Bay.
Debbie.
No response. Town of Hillsborough.
Al Royce, present.
Thank you. City of Menlo Park.
Cecilia Taylor here.
Thank you. City of Millbrae.
Ann Schneider.
Thank you. City of Pacifica.
Here, Mike O'Neill.
Thank you. City of Portola Valley. No response. City of Redwood City called and said they were going to be late, so I'm assuming Jeff Gee is not present at this time. City of San Bruno.
Tom Hamilton, present.
Thank you. City of San Carlos. A response. City of San Mateo.
Amarin Lee here.
Welcome, Ms. Lee. City of South San Francisco.
Mark Adiego here.
Thank you. City of Woodside.
John Carvel here.
Thank you and welcome. You have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you.
Deborah Ruddock from Half Moon Bay. I'm here as well.
Hi, welcome back.
Hello.
Thank you.
And also Carol Ford is here.
Hi, Carol Ford.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah. Hi, John Dugan from San Carlos.
And
Hello.
hi, Mr. Dugan.
Thank you, Mr. Dugan.
Wonderful. Okay, so then we're ready to move on to public comment. So any members of the public that, well, let's see, I better read my script here, huh? This is for items not on the agenda. Staff will read any written comments and allow members of the public to speak. Angela, do we have any public comment?
Thank you, Chair Ortiz. We did not receive any written comments, but I do see hands raised. So I will first go ahead and call on Jennifer. 1 second. Followed by Darlene.
Oh, fancy.
Hi, thank you. I'm speaking about the National Environmental Policy Act. In a prior meeting, I raised a concern about a meeting that the Roundtable had on October of 2017, where Supervisor Pine reviewed the situation with Phoenix, which happened at the time. I went back and listened to the tape, and it was after a question from Janet Borgens, where the topic came up that it was just sort of a general comment about that localities have no say. And I thought it would be a really good idea for the Roundtable to review the October 2017 session and have an updated look at how roundtables or local officials engage on NEPA issues. Because I think the comment that localities have no say is inconsistent both with NEPA itself and what the actual victory in Phoenix was, that the petition for review was accepted on the grounds that it was not sufficient engagement with the community. And also it doesn't take into account the efforts that the FAA has made since the Phoenix ruling about trying to improve their community engagement practices. But NEPA, just in general, if you're not familiar, the point is to have a hard look at the impacts that communities may be subjected to before the implementation of procedures. So I would appreciate, and I would suggest that it would be really good to know what the Roundtable's position is, because that would really inform the public as to how much we can rely on our local officials to address this. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I can just remind members of the public to state the city they're calling from. I have 4 hands raised. I will call on Darlene, followed by Ken Winters. Darlene, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
I was surprised and disappointed to read in the packet, page 29, December meeting minutes. The strategic plan and work plan do not include consideration of adding Palo Alto to the membership. I do not feel that the process was clearly communicated or transparent to the community or the full Roundtable. The Roundtable meeting February 5th was the initial discussion of expanding membership. Subsequent meetings were June 3rd, further conversation by the Roundtable. August 8th, a presentation on the process to amend the Roundtable membership. October 7th, an update was that it will be covered in a future meeting. There was no mention that this should be considered in the strategic and work plan process that were agendized items. If it was, I would have included it in my comments for the plans, along with many other community members. December 2nd, the chairman's update noted that Palo Alto membership would be covered later in the meeting. It was not. I reviewed the video and I did confirm that. It was only in the meeting packet that I found that the Roundtable did not consider Palo Alto for membership. I respect the democratic process. If Palo Alto might not have the votes to be part of the Roundtable, but no such Roundtable vote took place. We can respectively disagree. I don't have a problem with that, but my expectation is clear communication and transparency, which I feel did not take place. Yes, of course, I'd like the Palo Alto to be part of the Roundtable. We get 60% of the arrivals and are located 20 plus miles away. Ultimately, it's about equity. The membership of the Roundtable is outdated if it does not include heavily impacted communities. If the roundtable asks other community entities to change their current systems to address aviation impacts, the roundtable should do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yapoli. I will now call on Ken Winters, followed by Mark Scholl.
Good evening. This is Ken from Scotts Valley in Santa Cruz County. I realize I'm out of your jurisdiction, but one of the representative offices that I reached out to today suggested that I call in and provide public comments based on an issue that occurred last night. So I just wanted to summarize that for you in my brief time here. Around 3:30 to 3:35 a.m., flight number AAR 286 flew over the Monterey Bay and through over Santa Cruz and Scotts Valley. That's a Boeing 747. And it was loud like they typically are, flying at about 10,000 feet. But what made this event very unique and caused an entire swath of neighborhoods in Santa Cruz County to wake up is that that plane was followed by a Boeing 777 within 2 minutes. You can see on the map, they're very close together. Both of those flights within 2 minutes of each other arrived at SFO around 3:35 and 3:38 roughly a.m. And those two planes flying that close together and that low over Santa Cruz County created a sonic dynamic that, I mean, we really thought we were in an earthquake here. Woke up everybody in my house. Every neighbor I talked to was awake. Our dog was woken and started barking 3:30 in the morning. And I don't know what you guys can do about this next gen flight path. I know it's been discussed for years and years, but I'm hopeful that at some point the disenfranchisement that has happened with our communities can be addressed. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Winter. I will now call on Mark Scholl, followed by Rebecca Ward. Mr. Scholl?
My microphone appears to be muted. I'm not sure why. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Anyway, it's Mark Shaw from Palo Alto. The clock has started. The 2021 Roundtable Work Program was created in a closed ad hoc session. This is in stark contrast to history, and in particular to the many years when the Roundtable Work Program played a key role in SFO's Title 21 variance process. Let me explain. California Title 21 requires noise problem airports to mitigate environmental issues under land use law. Basically, the airport has to set goals and show progress against them to continue to qualify for a variance to operate the airport. The law also includes certain community and individual rights to demand open hearings to comment on or object to the goals. The first public hearings were messy. Over time, the California Department of Transportation, which administers Title 21, acceded to a request by SFO and the Roundtable that the open Roundtable process replace the law's open hearing process. Instead of holding open community hearings to develop mitigation conditions, this process, to quote the Roundtable meeting minutes, quote, incorporated the work program adopted by the Roundtable as the basis for its Title 21 variance filings and conditions. In 1999, the Roundtable's work program in its entirety, quote, became a condition of the Caltrans variance proceedings. In submissions to Congress the following year, the airport described this substituting the Roundtable work program process for Title 21 public hearings as, quote, a national model for intergovernment cooperation to address airport noise issues by the State of California Department of Transportation, unquote. Now, a lot has changed in what Title 21 still covers, but my point is the process surrounding setting the Roundtable's work plan goals has gone from something that was once touted and accepted by the state as a valid alternative to legally required open public hearings to now becoming one that is closed to the public. I think this is in the wrong direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scholl. I will now call on Rebecca Ward. Ms. Ward, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Hello, this is Rebecca Ward from Palo Alto, California, obviously. The Roundtable is largely funded by SFO Airport. SFO Airport is a department of the City of San Francisco and receives funds from the federal government. There should be full transparency in the Roundtable decision-making process. The strategic and work plan were done by an ad hoc committee without the public present. That lacks necessary transparency. If you are spending government funds, you should ensure government funding is spent equitably. Resourcing should be based on tangible metrics to define need with measurable outcomes. For example, Bellhaven and East Palo Alto, both of which are in San Mateo County, have 3 routes, Surfer, Bodega, and Pirate 2, accounting for approximately 60% of arrivals into SFO, traversing their communities at an altitude of 3,000 feet to 3,500 feet, including those massive 747 cargo planes in the middle of the night. Fly Quiet does not extend to those communities, and absolutely nothing has been done to address the disproportionate concentration. In fact, as I have raised to the airport, the FAA has been shifting traffic off Diamond and onto Surfer and Bodega purely for the benefit of airlines' undefined efficiency, making concentration there worse. There is significant documentation that jet noise and pollution impact health and learning. By contrast, years of resources were spent on keeping the Woodside-Vore oceanic traffic near Woodside and Portola Valley at 8,000 feet. That route accounts for roughly 5% of arrivals into SFO. It's hard to see how that's equitable. Additionally, there were no follow-up post-Pirate 2 to measure whether intended results were achieved and if there were any unintended consequences. There should be an independent body that can review and audit member recommendations and requests to ensure they are equitable, not based on biases, perceptions, or self-interest, and are focused on meeting a clear set of criteria that allows prioritization based on measurable impacts of airport operations with defined outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. And I do have one last hand from Mr. Peter Grace. Well, Mr. Grace, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Can't hear you.
Mr. Grace?
Mr. Grace, are you there?
I am, but I can hear you.
We can hear you.
We can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay, my name is Peter Grace. I live in Brisbane. I'd like to comment on the current meeting package. And first of all, 2 points. The minutes. Thank you very much for noting the time that agenda items are addressed. This is very helpful. Thank you. The second one on the meeting package is bringing up an issue of equity. Not all of us have color printers, and I, for one, use a black and white laser printer. So please request that all graphs presented in the meeting package do not rely on color to distinguish between points. It would be helpful if any of the attendees can turn to the meeting package, page 13. At the bottom, you will see a graph called significant exceedances. All the points are circles differentiated by color. When I print out the meeting package, and this page in particular, I cannot tell anything apart from that there are obvious dots. I hope the Roundtable will address this issue of equity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Grace. And with that, Chair Ortiz, we do not have any more hands raised.
Very good. I will, there's a few items that were brought up that I will address when I have my turn about transparency and such, about our goal planning. So, but for now, we are going to move on to the to set the agenda and approve the consent items. So right now I will entertain a motion to set the agenda. And then we'll leave it separate to approve the consent items because I believe somebody wanted to pull one of the items.
So moved. Hillsborough.
Second, Brisbane.
And then we'll do a roll call on that one. Or let me just do this, Angela. Hold on. You want to go through the consent agenda? There was one item that a member wanted to pull. You want to tell us? I believe it was Mr. Al from Woodside.
I would say for the item that was regarding the minutes for new members who weren't here for the session that the minutes are being approved, I was suggesting that we pull that from the consent agenda and have that as a second item that could be voted on separately, that new members could abstain on that vote item.
And I'm sorry, that was item number 2 in the consent agenda?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Royce, if
I amend my motion to incorporate that.
So everything but item number 2. So with that, we'll take a roll call on the agenda and the consent agenda minus item number 2.
City and
Just to make sure we're good, whoever was the second will agree to the amended motion.
Terry O'Connell, Brisbane. Yes, I do agree.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. City and County of San Francisco.
Yes.
City of San Francisco Mayor's Office.
Sorry, this is yes from the mayor's office.
Thank you. City and County of San Francisco Airport Commission.
Yes.
Thank you. San Mateo County Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
Thank you. The Airport Land Use Commission.
Yes.
Thank you. Town of Atherton.
Aye.
Thank you. City of Belmont.
Abstain.
Thank you. City of Brisbane.
Aye.
City of Burlingame.
Yes.
And City of Daly City.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Foster City.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Half Moon Bay.
Aye.
Thank you. Town of Hillsborough.
Yes.
City of Menlo Park.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Millbrae.
Aye.
City of Pacifica.
Yes.
Thank you. Did our City of Redwood City representative arrive? No response. City of San Bruno.
Aye.
Thank you. City of San Carlos.
Yes.
City of San Mateo.
Aye.
Thank you. City of South San Francisco.
Yes.
Thank you. And somebody said, excuse me.
Oh, Jeff Alves, Town of Portola Valley. Yes. Sorry, I was late.
Thank you very much. And the Town of Woodside.
Yes.
Thank you. Your motion passes. So we have a set of the agenda and the consent calendar minus minutes. Ricardo, you're on mute.
Oh man, I was sounding so good. I was so smart. But okay, here we go again. So we now move on to item number 2 in the consent agenda. And if anybody has comments or questions on that one, otherwise I'll entertain a motion. I guess I have to open up to the public for public comment on this item. Michelle, you're on mute now.
Yes, from the members first, and then from the public, and just reminding you that the October 7th minutes are returning from the December meeting because there was a question for us to check on member Giovanni's attendance at that meeting. So that's why we have 2 minutes on the meeting. So we think the minutes are accurately reflecting her attendance and voting.
Very good. Okay, so any questions from any members? Any questions from members of the public? Or any comments from members of the public, I should say?
Thank you, Chair Faith. We do have 2 hands raised, and I would like to remind members of the public that this is just for the minutes. So I will first call on Mary Jo Fremont, followed by Rebecca Ward.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm Mary Jo Fremont, Palo Alto. I don't know how I can comment on the airport director's reports because it was item 1 and it was not called.
My apologies, you're absolutely right. So did you want to pull that item for the, so I will accept your comments right now, Mary Jo. I apologize for that.
Okay, no problem. So on the last page of each monthly airport director's report, there's a table that shows for each city the number of people who complained and the number of complaints. There's also a map showing where the people who complained live. And if you look at many reports and rank the cities, you'll see that typically only one city on this roundtable, Portola Valley, is among the top 5 number of complaints and number of people who complain. The other 4 are all in Santa Clara County. Even though the complaint data includes several airports, SFO is the major culprit for these top 5 cities because more than 60% of SFO arrivals are routed over the peninsula. They affect many residential communities, including some of yours. Yet, despite this complaint data that keep coming back month after month, this roundtable has not been paying much attention to SFO arrivals in the recent past. Yes, there is GBAS, which is driven by SFO. However, GBAS is not going to solve the arrivals noise problem. It could even make things worse. At best, GBAS may reduce slightly the number of Bodega West flights, if, and only if, which is a big assumption, if Bodega East is used more. And goal number 1 of the 2020-2024, the strategic plan, states that the roundtable will review all departures, arrivals, and ground-based procedures. The current work plan even has 2 items about evaluating options for arrivals. However, and they are all important, departures, arrival, and ground-based, and there needs to be a balance across all 3. However, if you look at the list of subcommittee members in the packet, no member from a city affected by arrivals is on either the technical working group or the legislative committees. At a minimum, I would encourage members who are affected by SFO arrivals to volunteer for the technical working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fremont. I will now call on Ms. Rebecca Ward.
This is Rebecca Ward, Palo Alto. My comment relates to the meeting minutes. During the chairman's update at the December 2nd roundtable meeting, at minute 53, the chair, in response to an earlier public comment, said that a little further down the agenda, the roundtable would discuss adding Palo Alto as a member. The meeting minutes reflect that he said it would be discussed in agenda item number 9AB, though he did not say that. As has been pointed out, it was not discussed later in the meeting. However, and this was also pointed out, however, in the meeting minutes at 1 hour and 50, number 9AB, ad hoc committee recommendations on strategic plan, work plan, there is a statement that the strategic plan and work plan did not include consideration of adding Palo Alto to the membership. Would you please clarify what that statement means and why it is in the official meeting minutes that are intended to describe the meeting if it wasn't part of the discussion? The meeting minutes should accurately reflect the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Ortiz, we have no more hands raised.
Very good. Okay, so with that, thank you for the public comment, and we'll go back to the membership for any questions or any comments on the meeting minutes. And if everybody is okay with them, I know that there's a little question about the Palo Alto comment, but I think it was covered, and we will address it later. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the acceptance of the minutes from the October 7th and the December 2nd meeting.
Thank you, Member Royce.
Member O'Connell will second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll need to do roll call. Michelle, please.
You're mute.
You're muted, Michelle.
City and County of San Francisco. No response. City and County of San Francisco Mayor's Office.
Abstain.
Abstain. City and County of San Francisco Airport Commission.
Yes.
San Mateo County Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
Airport Land Use Commission. And Carol, you're muted.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Town of Atherton.
Abstain.
Thank you. City of Belmont.
Abstain.
Thank you. City of Brisbane.
Aye.
Thank you. City of Burlingame.
Yes.
Or City of Daly City.
Aye.
Thank you. City of Foster City.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Half Moon Bay.
Abstain.
Thank you. Town of Hillsborough.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Menlo Park.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Millbrae.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Pacifica.
Yes.
Thank you. Town of Portola Valley.
Abstain.
Thank you. City of Redwood City.
Abstain.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Gee. City of San Bruno.
Abstain.
Thank you. City of San Carlos. Thank you. City of San Mateo.
Abstain.
Thank you. City of South San Francisco.
Yes.
Thank you. Town of Woodside.
Abstain.
Thank you. Your motion passes.
Here we go again. Okay, here we go. Okay, so with that, we will move on to item number 7, the roundtable subcommittees. Most of the work of the roundtable occurs in subcommittees.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. Somebody say something? Okay, most of the work of the roundtable occurs in the subcommittees. The focus of this item is to 1, request members to volunteer for participation in the committee. Number 2, ensure that the committee has a chairperson. And 3, review the committee types and agree to eliminate ad hoc subcommittees inactive and move them to standing or define remaining tasks and timeline completion. And I turn it over to Ms. Rodriguez for a brief review of the standing and ad hoc subcommittees charts from our packets. Michelle, you're muted.
Angela, I don't look like I'm a host here, so I cannot. Oh, here we go. I'm sorry. Okay. What I wanted to try to do, and this is on page 89 and 90 of your packet, was just to review what we have. And what we have is the standing committees is listed in your MOU and bylaws are identified here on your left, the work program, operations and efficiency, legislative and technical working group. The roles have been, are somewhat defined in those bylaws, but then have been refined as part of the active work that folks have been doing on those committees. This active and not active has just been since I've come in August. And these are the members at this time, with the chairpersons shown in italics. And with the recent change in our membership, we did have a legislative chair who has now left the membership. And what we added here to the far right are the work program goals for the December 2020 through June 21 period. So you can see that the majority of work would fall under the technical working group. And so what we would try to do at this evening's meeting then is to, at a minimum, try to identify a chair for the legislative committee, and also ask members who This is their opportunity to opt into a particular committee. And then going on to the next slide, which is the ad hoc committee. So your membership has the opportunity to create ad hoc committees. They're typically for a short term or task with a particular mission or outcome as a goal. And you can see here that we have 3 of them at this time: ground-based noise, portable noise monitoring, and strategic plan. The strategic plan committee is shown there on the bottom, serve their role to complete the 4-year strategic plan that the work is now complete on that. The other 2, ground-based noise, was originally identified as a short-term committee. They have recently received their report, and that chairperson will give you an update on that later. The question, I think, on that committee is whether they are ad hoc, whether they need to more clearly define the conclusion aspect of this role. Is it done after 2 more meetings when they've come up with recommendations, or should it move then to a standing committee instead? And then the portable noise monitoring placement committee has not met since August. So in my mind, it's not active. Should that remain and continue? And that's what I wanted to review with you on these. These are an important part of your active work. This is really where the work happens. Thank you.
Can we put the list back up, and we could start with number 1, and then maybe we could go through it and talk through those. So again, so the ground-based, no, let's go to page number 1. Let's start with that one, and we'll get to that one. So the work program, I think, is an important committee. It says not active. I thought we had met, but I think that one we should definitely bring back to life more probably towards the end of the fiscal year, so we can focus on next year. But so we can leave that one alone for now, and then work on the work program for the following fiscal year. Does that make sense, Michelle?
Yes.
Okay, and so then let's go to operations and efficiency. And if you want to discuss that one, I don't recall that. I don't recall being at a meeting of the operations and efficiency, but they may have been before I was chair. So if anybody recalls it, or if anybody has comments on the operations and efficiency subcommittee, I welcome your comments right now.
Through the chair.
Yes.
This is Anne from Millbrae. Michelle, would you mind, or could you make the chart a little bit bigger? Otherwise, some of us might be flipping between Zoom and the PDF. Or I'm just getting old.
Is that better?
That's better. Thank you.
Thank you.
So operations and efficiency. Michelle, what are your thoughts on the operations and efficiency subcommittee?
I feel that that's a standing committee that could be institutionalized as required at some point in time, that you decide as a membership that there might be some business operations or procedures you want to either develop or streamline, or relook at, say, your MOU or something along that line. We would initiate the standing subcommittee, fill it with members, and begin the work.
So we'll say as needed. So for the meantime, we could leave that one alone. Maybe we can come back to it. But I do feel that we're going to have some issues that will require that operations and efficiency committee. So we'll get back to it. Now, here's one that I know there's a lot of interest in, is the legislative committee. And we already have 3 members sitting there. So I don't know if anybody would like to be chair of the legislative committee, or if there's any new members that would like to join this committee. We welcome, and I think one of the speakers made mention of our cities that are under the arrivals that might benefit from being in this legislative committee. So with that, I'll leave it to any members who would like to volunteer for this committee.
I see Member Schneider's hands raised, but I don't know if that was earlier for the slides or if that's still.
Member Schneider.
No, I'm sorry. That was just to make the chart bigger.
Okay. Okay.
And Member Pam DiGiovanni has her hand raised.
Pam, did you?
Yeah, through the chair, I was wondering, do we make a motion like to nominate someone for chair for this committee? Since I supposedly I volunteered the last time, but I wanted to nominate Ann Schneider, Mayor Schneider, for chair.
That's fine. Let's and you already.
I very much appreciate that, but I already chair ground-based noise, and I don't want to take away the joy for other members to be able to be chair. But thank you, Pamela.
You're welcome.
And did you have something else to say?
I know. I'm just open the floor.
Oh, Ann or Pam. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Member Schneider.
No, I just want, yeah, I'm just happy to be on the legislative committee, and whoever is the chair, I'm fine.
And again, I encourage some of our friends to the south to join this committee because it's a different focus from those of us who deal with ground-based noise. So I again encourage more participation from the cities to the south. So
yes, please.
Okay, so Member Schneider, you had something you were going to say, and I'm sorry.
I just was going to agree with you that it would be nice to have some people from the southern part of the county. And if we have a lot of new members, Chair Ortiz, if they need a little bit of time to think about it, they can always join over the next 2 months, can't they?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that I plan to do is with some of us who've been on for a while is make a few calls and talk to some of our new members and just welcome them and encourage them to join some of our subcommittees. So I hear a lot of crickets, so I'm assuming I'm not going to get any more volunteers for the legislative committee. But again, I will be making some calls to encourage some of the members. But I do want to leave us with a chair, and I would just like to consider Mr. Al Royce as a chair if you are amenable.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm on that committee, but I haven't been a part of it in the past, so I'd be new to it. But I'd be happy to be the chair if you so desire.
I am happy to second that. And Mayor Royce, I can fill you in. I've been on it for 4 or 5 years.
Great, thank you.
Very good. And I don't think we need a vote by the membership. It's more like an appointment. Is that correct, Michelle?
Correct.
Yeah, so I dub the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Royce.
Thank you.
I accept the dubment.
Thank you. Very good. Okay, great. And that again, for the new members, that is an important subcommittee because there are things that we need to advocate that are beyond our power, and we just need some help, and that's how we get that help. So moving on to the technical working group. I usually run those meetings, but those are again, like to focus on some of the people in the South so that we can get some of the issues that are important to them and we can talk about in detail. So I would encourage some of the new members to join the technical working group. It sounds very dull, but it actually, once you kind of learn some of the basics, it's actually pretty interesting. So any members that would be interested in joining the technical working group, and I guess this one's really open, you can show, but I would love to have some people who are standing members. So anybody who would be interested in this committee.
Chair Ortiz, we have a handful of hands raised from the members.
Very good. Okay.
And just going in order of how I saw them, how they're displaying here, sorry. Member Vice Chairman Hindi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I would like to join the technical working group committee.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Hindi. I appreciate all your support. So, and again, that's one member for arrivals. So I encourage others. Thank you. On to the next one.
Member Jeff Alf.
Hi, Jeff Alfs, council member from Portola Valley, and I would be happy to join the technical working group as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that. And on to the next one.
Member Bill Widmer.
Yep, I'm happy to join.
Okay. Thank you, Member Widmer. Appreciate that. And on to the next one.
Member Ann Schneider.
I was only going to point out that in the past, especially during the heat of the next gen discussions, every member was welcome to attend the working group. Is that the technical working group? Chair Ortiz, is that still the case?
Yes, it is. I would just like to have kind of a core group that will kind of commit to be there, because I think that makes it for more continuity. We have the same people there.
Excellent, but would welcome everyone.
Absolutely, yes. And thank you for that, Member Snyder. That's important. So with that, we move on to the next one.
I see Terry O'Connell.
I just had my hand up because I was on the group and I've only attended one meeting, but I found it very interesting and really productive. So I would like to stay on it, and that was my only comment.
I'm very happy to have you on it, so thank you for that. Okay, so I think we've gone through this page, and we could go to the next page, and let's talk about the ground-based noise committee. And really the question here is, do we change it from an ad hoc to a standing committee? And I particularly want your thoughts, Member Schneider, as the chair of the subcommittee.
Well, we had a ground-based noise meeting last week. Michelle had brought this process to our attention, and every ground-based noise member agreed that it should go forward as a permanent committee, at least until all low-frequency noise is resolved, which will be a very long time. So it is my recommendation that we become a permanent standing committee.
Good, I would support that recommendation, and I'm assuming some of our other members of the committee, again, because we did discuss it during the committee meeting, so I think everybody was in support of that. So with that, do we need to do anything else to make it? Does that need to go to a vote, Michelle?
That does need to go to a vote, but you may want to continue to talk about the rest of your items in case there's any other change.
Very good, okay.
Thank you.
So ground-based noise committee, I would think there was one new member that is from a town that would be kind of, and that would be Mr. Hamilton. I don't know if you would be interested in joining that committee. I think San Bruno gets a little bit of the ground-based noise, so it might be interesting for you.
I'm not sure if I'm going to have the bandwidth for the subcommittee as well. I would want to give my full attention to it if I was appointed to it. I would like to attend if it's an open, it's an open meeting like the rest of the subcommittees are, as needed. But I respectfully decline at this point.
Okay, thank you. That was very nicely put. But yes, you're more than welcome to be there. And again, I think it's an issue that does affect San Bruno, so we welcome your participation.
Thank you.
So with that, then we'll move on to the portable noise monitor placement subcommittee. So first of all, the question as to whether it should be ad hoc or standing. In my mind, I mean, I could go either way on that. Member O'Connell, why don't you give us your thoughts?
Well, I think that the mission of the Portable Noise Monitor Placement Subcommittee is valid. We have not really had to make any decisions since the initial couple of meetings that we had. And so I think it can stay as an ad hoc subcommittee and meet as needed. I think it's a very important component of the new noise monitors, though. So I think it should stay as a ad hoc, at least.
Very good. Okay, so we are going to leave the portable noise monitor replacement as an ad hoc. We have Member O'Connell, Member O'Neill, and Member Taylor as standing members. Once again, it's open to whatever member wants to be there, but we would love any participation of any of the new members as a standing committee member. So any volunteers, you speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, so with that then, we will move on to the strategic plan. And again, this one we met, and I take to heart some of the comments from the public, and I think that we need to revisit some of how that process went this year and look to do it a little different moving forward. But I think it's an important committee, and again, we have quite a few members in there right now. I would love to have more people, again, from the South. We have member Taylor, but if I could have a few more, I would love it. And again, it's a really important committee, especially when we have some of the issues that are kind of controversial. So with that, any members that would like to be considered for the strategic plan? And the strategic plan, it is an ad hoc because we do that once a year, Michelle, is that?
No, the strategic plan was the 4-year work. The work plan is the annual one that we do.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to raise my hand, but this is Alex Sweet from the San Francisco Mayor's Office, and I'm interested in joining this committee.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. That would be great. Okay. And this one we're going to leave as ad hoc until we feel that this is completed. Michelle?
It is ad hoc, and in my mind, it is complete. You can see under the work program, the work is complete.
Okay, so then there's not much. But
not much for me to do if I join.
Oh, no, stand by. Now that you express your interest, when we come up with something that's similar, then we will restart it. In the meantime, then the only thing that's remaining for the membership to vote on is changing the ground-based noise from an ad hoc to a standing committee. And with that, I will open it for member questions before we consider a motion.
And you may want to take public input on that as well.
Right, yeah, I messed up once, I won't do it again.
And Chair Ortiz, I do not see any hands raised from the members.
Very good, then we will open it to the public. And again, the issue before us is the question whether the ad hoc, the ground-based noise committee should be ad hoc or a standing committee. So we're recommending that it go to a standing committee. And with that, I will open it to public comment.
Thank you, Chair. I do see one hand raised. I would just like to remind members of the public that are calling by phone that you may press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. And if you can please state the city you are calling from, I will call on Jennifer.
Hi, good evening. And for some reason, this clock blocks the rest of my screen, so I can't see my notes on my computer. But from the charts you showed, the technical committee has a lot of procedures that impact arrival communities. And back to the National Environmental Protection Act, and just the concern about when the public has a say, you're discussing procedures that impact people that are not even aware that you're discussing this. And I've been reminding everyone at all of these meetings that you don't do public outreach. And the public who will be affected and stands to be affected by your actions, you don't even know who those people are because you haven't been doing any projections of how your potential recommendations or anyone's actions are going to have an impact. So I feel very uncomfortable when this technical committee started and it was revived. It was in 2014 when NextGen began, and it was opened as an arrivals subcommittee in order to welcome people in Palo Alto who had been rejected from the roundtable at the time. So I really think the FAA needs to take a hard look at this, because I think it's absolutely unacceptable that these procedures that impact communities that are not within your, group or whatever are being discussed in basically, dark rooms or whatever you call it. And I just think that something's got to change about how these committees, where, as you say, all the work gets done, is happening. And at the very minimum, to have an observation of NEPA. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other further public comment? And I want to remind everybody that it's comments specifically about the ground-based noise committee and whether it should remain ad hoc or become a standing committee. That is the only issue we're talking about right now.
Thank you, Chairman Ortiz. And I do not have any more hands raised from members of the public, but I do see member Ann Schneider. Her hand is raised.
Thank you, member Schneider.
Thank you,
Please.
Chair. This is for the rest of the roundtable as well as the public. When we first created the Ground-Based Noise Committee, there were a number of other work plan items, including coming up with a work plan, a work format a reporting format that recognized low frequency noise instead of high frequency noise, a better discussion of A-weighted versus C-weighted noise, a glossary of terms, and something that came up at our meeting last week, showing contours, not contours that are necessarily accepted by the FAA or by Caltrain under California Public Resources Code Title 21, but to begin to look that low frequency noise is different than high frequency noise and moves in different ways. So as well as what I'll report from the study, and the spectral analysis that has also been done, we have a lot of work to dive into the science, see what kind of results we can pull out, see if there are any simple operational changes, and then identify more complicated changes. And I was just so happy to report that we actually had an engineer from Boeing attend our ground-based noise meeting, because ultimately it is going to be an engine design and airframe design that will affect low frequency noise. So we have a lot of work left, and I hope that the rest of the roundtable will support creating this committee as a standing committee. Thank
Member
you.
Schneider, I'll take that as a motion to make the ground-based noise committee a standing committee.
I'll second.
I'm sorry. So, Member Schneider, you said yes, that is a motion?
I said thank you, yes.
And I
Sorry,
did,
Cecilia.
heard a second, but I'm not sure who that was.
From Cecilia Taylor.
Thank you, Member Taylor. So we have a motion from Member Schneider, a second from Member Taylor. With that, we go to roll call, please.
City and County of San Francisco. No response. City and County of San Francisco Mayor's Office.
Aye.
Thank you. City and County San Francisco Airport Commission.
Aye.
Thank you. San Mateo County Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
Airport Land Use Commission.
Muted, Carol.
Thank you for catching me. I think it should stay as an ad hoc committee.
Town of Atherton.
I'll abstain because I don't know enough about all these committees at this time.
City of Belmont.
Likewise abstain.
City of Brisbane.
Aye.
City of Burlingame.
Yes.
City of Daly City.
Aye.
Thank you. City of Foster City.
Yes.
City of Half Moon Bay.
Yes.
Town of Hillsborough.
Yes.
City of Menlo Park.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Melbray.
Yes.
City of Pacifica.
Yes.
Town of Portola Valley.
Yes.
Thank you. City of Redwood City. No response. City of San Bruno.
Aye.
City of San Carlos. I did not hear you, Mr. Dugan.
I hear a hissing sound.
I hear hissing.
Yeah.
It sounds like, is that a thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up. I'll take that as a yes. City of San Mateo.
Abstain.
Abstain. The City of South San Francisco.
Yes.
Thank you. Town of Woodside.
Yes.
Your motion passes. It's no longer an ad hoc committee.
Perfect. Member Schneider, you got a standing committee. Okay, so with
Thank
that,
you, Chair.
move on to item number 8, which is a chairman's update. And mostly I'd like to just spend a few minutes introducing our new members and welcoming. So let me start with the City and County of San Francisco Mayor's Office. I have Alexandra, you go by Alex, I think, Alex Sweet.
That's right. Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Welcome. I have from the town of Atherton, Bill Widmer.
Aye.
I'm from the City of Belmont, Tom McCune.
Greetings. Good evening, everybody.
Nice to have you. City of, I almost said City of Brisbane, Terry. Can you imagine that? City of Half Moon Bay, a returning Debbie Ruddock.
Happy to rejoin.
Yeah, thank you. Good to have you. Town of Portola Valley, I have Jeff Alf.
Hi, I am replacing Ann Wengert, who really can't be replaced, but I'm looking forward to meeting you all.
You have some big shoes to fill, sir. City of Redwood City, I have Jeff Gee. I don't know if he joined. City of San Bruno, I have Tom Hamilton.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, welcome.
Glad to join.
Good to have you. City of San Carlos, John Dugan.
And Adam Rack will stay an alternate.
Good. Tell him he better.
Will do.
City of San Mateo, Amaranth Lee, welcome.
Thank you so much.
City of Woodside, John Carvel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to have you. And that, I think, is all our new members. So did I miss anybody? Any new members? Okay, so well, the new members all received a new packet with the MOU, bylaws, meeting dates, strategic plan, and a work plan. Would I encourage all of you, if you do know any of the members who've been on board for a while, to please reach out so that we can help. There are a lot of acronyms and a lot of technical jargon that is used. Please, I beg you, and I think I've had some members who have stopped us, and if we get too technical, please stop us and ask the questions. I think it was Mike O'Neill who started that, and please continue it, because I think sometimes we just kind of forget, and if you don't understand it, the members of the public are not going to understand it. So although we have some very educated members who, but the general public wouldn't. So we welcome the calls, and if you have any questions, I'll be open to anytime you guys need anything. So with that, welcome. And then let's talk about a little bit about some of the comments that were made earlier about our, first about the Palo Alto. One of the decisions that we made was with the new membership coming on board, that it was better to hold off and bring the issue up later in the year once there's some have had a chance to get used to the roundtable. I am not trying to brush it under the carpet. I promise you, we will put it up for a vote at some point after we've had a chance to discuss and let everybody know what it entails, and as far as what we would have to do with the MOU to be able to do that. So we will bring it back up later in the year, and we will make sure it's very transparent and everybody knows what we're doing. When it comes to our work plan and how that process went, we were open to comments from the public. We did receive a number of comments, but the actual deliberations were not open to the public. That's something we can reconsider for the future, but for this one, we did consider the comments from the public, and they entered into our conversation. So I just want to assure you that that was not ignored. With that, I will open it up for any questions from the membership. And if we don't have any questions from members, then
I think maybe, if you don't mind, I would just like to add something, if you
Yes,
don't mind. Yes, thank you. I do want to make sure that that all of the new members understand that we did a survey that was in the membership and in the public. And the membership one asked specifically about whether we wanted to have, as part of the 4-year strategic plan or work plan, a discussion of opening to the larger membership. And it was decidedly no. It was very clear in the survey. Then in the meetings that we had, and there were 2 meetings held of 2 hours each talking about the whole 4-year growth, it was clearly said that we wanted to focus on San Mateo and San Francisco County community and noise issues related to those two counties, that we needed to focus very clearly on those two counties, and that there were other roundtables to address other areas, and that was not our job, that we could collaborate if we decided to with other roundtables. And although that work was to develop a draft strategic plan and a draft work plan, those were brought forward to the full membership for discussion and public input. And we included the survey and the results, both from the membership as well as from the public. And nobody wanted to change anything from that. So that was why you see in the 4-year strategic plan, the goal is to focus just on San Mateo County, and that the 1-year work plan is specifically action oriented to address work plan items, not to begin discussion on whether, because it's not just a question of San Mateo, it's a much broader discussion that we would have to have. And if you've had multiple meetings on this topic over the years, that I'm happy to bring some of that information up if you want to spend time to do that. But it's not just about opening the door to Palo Alto, it's consideration of another county or something else we need to talk about. It's not just that. So I want to make sure that you have some of that other history, and I don't know if other members want to bring up any more.
And again, with new membership, we will have to revisit. But with that, I'll open it up again to the membership to see if anybody has any questions or any comments. And having none, then we can open it up to.
I'm sorry, Chairman. We do have member Cecilia Taylor.
Okay, Member Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chairperson Ortiz, and thank you, Ms. Rodriguez, for giving that background, because I just sent you an email about what is the process to add a city. And at this time, the only other city in the county on the southern end is East Palo Alto does not want to participate. And the fact that Atherton does, and my city is along that same flight path, it's hard for me not to advocate for Palo Alto to be a part of the discussion. And so I'm trying to think of a way, what's the interim? Because the airport noise isn't going away between now and 4 years. And so how do we bring that voice in that doesn't have a seat? Because I think that some of what Palo Alto brings to the conversation is definitely valid for some of our subcommittees. So I'm not sure what that solution is, but I'm here to bring that voice, and I do apologize for that sound on my microphone. So I hope that we can come up with something, even with new members. I still think that there is a place for Palo Alto. Thank you.
Okay, and again, this has been discussed many times. It has come to a vote a few years ago, and we have, Member Taylor, I'd be happy to get on the phone with you and discuss. We do hear a lot from the public in Palo Alto. A lot of the questions are raised and asked and answered, so they're not completely ignored. So I just want to make sure that we all understand that. And with that, but thank you for your comments, and maybe I can take it offline and have a little conversation about the history.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And we do have Member Schneider.
Member Schneider.
Chair Ortiz, if I can help, what I have found in my 5 years on Roundtable, at the technical working group level, at the ground-based noise level meetings, we are much less official and formal, and the public comes in and we have discussions back and forth. Chair Ortiz, that is normally how we operate most of the committees. Is that true?
That is correct. But is this?
And I'm only bringing this up because I count on the people from Palo Alto who send me emails, send me reports, help me come up to speed. I very much appreciate how very technical many of the speakers from outside of San Mateo or San Francisco County are. And I thought we designed the working group, the technical working group and ground-based noise to have more of a back and forth conversation, as well as their ability to have a back and forth conversation with our consultants.
Thank you, Member
Because
Schneider.
there's so many new roundtable members at that level, it's much more interactive.
Thank you, Member Schneider. I think that's an important point that you make, that it's not only at the roundtable meetings that we hear from our friends in Palo Alto, it's also at the technical working group and the subcommittees. And again, we have a very educated group from Palo Alto that can probably dance circles around me. So I always appreciate their comments, and we pay a lot of attention, and some of our questions are based on their comments. So any other members who wish to comment?
Yes, we have member Jeff Alf.
Member Alf.
Thank you. I will respect the process that the board has gone through on this question, but I will also just say that in our informal discussions among my colleagues in Portola Valley, we've always sided with Member Taylor on this question of Palo Alto. Again, I will raise that as another concurring opinion from another jurisdiction, while saying that I still respect understand where the group as a whole has come down on this one. Thanks.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate that comment.
And Chair of State, we have no more hands raised from members of.
We could just open it up to public comment.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And as a reminder to anybody calling by phone, you may press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. And I do see 4 hands raised at the moment. I will first call on Mr. Mark Scholl, followed by Liz Lopez. Mr. Scholl, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Hi, Mark Scholl from Palo Alto. I appreciate that if you just generally ask the public, hey, do you want to share this? They say no. And that seems to be a sentiment among some members as well. But, and you cite history. I've done a lot of work on the history. I have the full volumes of every single roundtable minute from the very, very beginning. And I think I'm the only one that does. I have done 12 major FOIAs. I know what happens underneath a lot of these decisions and what's really happening. And I can tell you that the whole idea of regional solutions, alternative roundtables are not valid. And the senior people at all levels don't believe they're valid either. It's just really become an excuse. Palo Alto is under San Francisco's Class B airspace, not any other airport. And the only airport that can make recommendations, and all recommendations have to go through the airport, are San Francisco. And on arrivals, even the low-hanging fruit is not being addressed. And if there's a separate roundtable, is SFO planning on funding it? Is the FAA going to send a regional administrator? Is it going to be equal? What is it going to be? Even the select committee process, if you look at the FOIA, and I can provide the documents, was never intended to be a equal process to the roundtable, which is why there was a separate process that actually has had follow-up, where the select committee has had 0 real follow-up. And finally, even things on GBAS, we're not being consulted in a meaningful way. We're said it's all going through the roundtable. That's what happened in Pirate. The FAA basically presentation was the track change was approved by the roundtable, not even the select committee. So really, I think those alternatives are not real. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Scholl. I will now call on Liz Lopez, followed by Mary Jo Fremont. Liz, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Yes, hi, my name's Liz Lopez. I'm from San Francisco. Communities like Palo Alto and Santa Cruz have been very much impacted, specifically by SFO aircraft noise. And why they are not part of the roundtable, this San Francisco roundtable, is very much confusing to me, as I'm sure it is to others. And I would like to see the survey that was released. I don't recall that was ever released to the public, so it would just be great to see the results of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. I will now call on Mary Jo Fremont, followed by Rebecca Ward. Ms. Fremont, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Mary Jo Fremont from Palo Alto.
taxation without representation, gerrymandering, voter suppression. I witnessed all of these firsthand while I was canvassing safely in Georgia for 2 months this winter. I thought that these things only happened in the South. Unfortunately, I see them here in my backyard, which is considered enclave. Airplane noise doesn't stop at county lines. Cities that are deeply affected by SFO deserve direct representation at the SFO roundtable. My city is not at the table because, quote unquote, it does not belong. Though we are impacted by more than half of SFO arrivals plus some departures. Last August, there was a presentation on the process to amend the roundtable membership. It sounded complex, though it has been done before. Atherton and Redwood City did not get a seat on this roundtable until 1997, when they were finally allowed to join because they'd been complaining about SFO noise for years. So the amendment process is simple and straightforward. You need a 2/3 majority vote to instruct each member to bring a resolution for amending your membership to their respective city councils. And this month is Black History Month. Therefore, I'm going to quote John Lewis, who asked, "If not us, then who? If not now, then when?" So I want to ask each of you around this table, will you vote on amending the membership? Will you remove this artificial wall and welcome your neighbor from across the line? Or will you condone this arbitrary division of communities? Divide or unite, it's not just a concept for others to worry about. It starts right here in this room. Please do your part. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fremont. I will now call on Ms. Rebecca Ward, followed by Lydia Ku. Ms. Ward, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Hello, Rebecca Ward from Palo Alto. I'd like to also sort of reinforce what other people have said, which is the concentration of traffic is over Palo Alto, which is why we're asking to join the roundtable. It's SFO traffic, and independent of joining the roundtable, we do not have a voice, which seems completely to the antithesis of what you would expect out of SFO, out of San Francisco, which is the owner of the airport. You would expect inclusion. There's also a benefit to the roundtable to include Palo Alto. As many of you have articulated, we're very educated about this because we've been living under it for a long period of time. And we have understanding of how the traffic is being shaped, how it's being moved, even on recommendations that the FAA makes, and where they may not be fully articulating some of the risks related to some of the changes that they're making. So we are actually a benefit. We're not a distraction from it. It helps other communities like Menlo Park, like Atherton, because we do understand the traffic. So I think you should think about it from that perspective. And as I said earlier, I do worry that people's biases, come into play, and that it's really not based on fact, and that perceptions outweigh reality. So I would really ask all of you to reconsider, those of you that I guess vehemently were opposed to us, and really think about why that is, and whether or not that was the right stance, and be open to changing your mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. I will now call on Ms. Lydia Ku. Ms. Ku, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Thank you so much. My name is Lydia Ku. I'm with the City of Palo Alto. I am a council member, but I'm tonight speaking as a resident of Palo Alto. I want to sincerely thank you to members Cecilia Taylor and to Jeff Alms from Portola Valley, and also to Ms. Lopez from San Francisco for including us in this interaction and contribution. Palo Alto and Menlo Park, as well as East Palo Alto, is highly affected by airplane noise in multiple routes. And so I just want to ask, as some of the previous speakers have spoken, that it is that there is no boundaries to noise, especially airplane noise, and that Palo Alto has contributed greatly to conversations as well as analysis to some of the effects of the airplane noise. So I would certainly hope that San Francisco Roundtable will continue to consider Palo Alto to join the roundtable. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Koo. And I do see another hand raised. I will now call on Greer Stone.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Greer Stone. I'm a Palo Alto City Council member, and I'll keep this short. I've been appointed as the liaison to the SFO Roundtable, and I appreciate comments from some of the representatives on this board who are open to having Palo Alto have an official capacity within the board. And of course, I strongly encourage that and appreciate the comments made by many of our Palo Alto residents and council member Koo just now. So I won't take up more of your time, but just thank you for the consideration. It's wonderful to meet all of you, and I hope to have the honor of serving with you in the future if you do choose to accept Palo Alto as to have an official role on this board. So thank you very much for your time and for your service, and hopefully talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Sorry, Chair Ortiz, I do have one hand by Mr. Peter Grace.
Okay.
Mr. Grace?
Hi, my name is Peter Grace. I agree with Liz Lopez from San Francisco. I would like to talk about something that no one else has addressed, and that is this and at other roundtable meetings, the public comments are coming predominantly from cities that are not represented on the round table. I've learned a lot from these comments, and also I appreciate their energy and commitment. If the round table is afraid of Palo Alto and Park dominating the meetings, can this be addressed through the agenda? Thank you.
Thank
Chair
you.
Ortiz, we have no more hands raised. Oh,
Okay,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you, Grace. I too have learned a lot from our friends from Palo Alto. And
Sorry, Chair, I do have one hand that came in just last minute. So
This is not an agendized item.
Okay, go ahead. We're going to take that public comment.
Just a quick note, appreciating all the comments from the people supporting Palo Alto's interest. I'm very concerned about the NEPA process, but I really like what Mr. Grace just said about regarding agenda issues. Arrivals noise is very different from departures. And I think a very big conflict has been, where to put attention, departures or arrivals. And it gets very mixed in. And that's how the technical committee, which was originally an arrivals committee, became a technical committee and with mixed items. So I would just suggest that there are ways that things can be worked out so nobody has to fear anything, and instead put the focus into providing, help to all the communities that are interested in addressing this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, I want to thank everybody for your comments. That truly was not on our agenda, but I appreciate the comments. So with that, we will move on to item number 9, which is our FAA annoyance survey. And we have with us Mary Ellen Egan, who's the president and CEO of HMMH, our consultant. And with that, I'll pass it on to her. Thank you very much. Michelle, you were shaking your hand. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Ortiz, and thank you for the opportunity to present the findings of the FAA's Neighborhood Environmental Survey. We had a presentation. We gonna share that, or did you want me to share that? How?
Yes,
I can share that, Mary Ellen, if you would like, or if you want to share it, either way.
Justin, that'd be great.
Sure.
Sorry, I was assuming
No problem.
that it was.
No problem. Okay. Can you see that? Are we
Yes.
good?
Yep, great. Thank you so much. Again, thank you for the opportunity to share the results of this important FAA survey. HOMH was actually the prime contractor to FAA for the research with support from Westat Inc., which is a survey and research firm. Next slide, please, Justin. My presentation covers the following topics: the motivation for this study, a little bit of background, and particularly I understand that there are a number of you who are new to the roundtable, so there's a little bit of history in the first bit. The methodology that we used and primary results, finishing up with a comparison to some prior studies, and also next steps. Next slide. In 1978, Ted Schultz, researchers, published research on the annoyance of people to noise made by various modes of transportation, aviation among them, but not exclusively aviation. And specifically, the research, excuse me, looked at the exposure as characterized by the day-night average sound level, or DNL, which is similar but not identical to CNEL. The difference being that DNL looks at day and night noise, whereas CNEL also includes an evening time frame. The research looked at annoyance levels versus noise levels, and that curve, dose response curve, became known as the Schultz curve. In 1992, the Federal Interagency Committee on Noise, or FICON, re-evaluated and essentially reaffirmed the Schultz curve, updated it a little bit, and it is referenced as the FICON curve, and that is what a lot of policy has been based on since then. The FICON curve shows that at a DNL level, day-night average sound level of 65 decibels, about 12% of people surveyed are highly annoyed by, again, all kinds of transportation noise. So it has been 30 years since the FICON work was published, and longer since the original Schultz research. And although there have been recent studies conducted in the past decade, most of that work has been outside of the US. The National Academy of Sciences Airport Cooperative Research Program, ACRP, conducted a study looking into research methods for updating this work. And that project considered noise and annoyance levels around 3 airports. Those were San Diego, Portland International Airport, and Boston Logan Airport. And because those 3 airports were included in the ACRP project, they were subsequently excluded from the current study. So with those motivating factors, the goal of the Neighborhood Environmental Survey was to produce essentially an updated representative national dose response curve for noise from civil aircraft operations. Next slide. The methodology that we used had really 3 phases, technically. The first was to identify the airports that would be surveyed in airport selection. The second was the Neighborhood Environmental Survey. That's the actual survey of the communities around those airports that were selected. And then thirdly, the computation of noise levels and the statistical analyses to relate those two. And I'll talk about each of these in a little bit of detail. Next slide, please. So we conducted a multi-stage and quite rigorous process to select a representative sample of US airports. So we created first a sampling frame to identify all of the eligible airports that met a number of criteria that were designed mostly for purposes of the statistical study. So they had to have a minimum amount of traffic. They had to have a minimum number of people exposed to various noise levels. They had to be regionally representative, and so forth. In addition to that, because of some high tempo airports, high levels of aircraft operations, the FAA identified 3 airports that they wanted included in the study. Those were Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles. And then a 4th airport that the FAA identified, which was one of the New York airports, which was identified as LaGuardia. So there were 4 airports identified by the FAA. And then from the remaining of that 95 airport sampling frame, we randomly identified an additional 16 airports, so that there were 20 airports that were ultimately selected. And those are shown here in the red dots with the airport names listed next to them. The black labels are for all of the other airports that represent the 95 airport sampling frame. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So based on the original study that the ACRP study.
Excuse me, Mary Ellen, could you please make it bigger? It's really hard to see, and I wanted to see the map in the slide before, if you wouldn't mind, and pardon the interruption.
This is unfortunately, this is full screen for me,
Okay.
Member Ford.
Okay.
However, this presentation is in your packet. So if you wanted to look later closer at the map, you would be able to zoom in, I think.
Thank you.
Yep, sorry about that.
Okay.
There you go.
So based on the original study and the recommendations of the International Commission on the Biological Effects of Noise, called ICBEN, a questionnaire was sent to nearly 54,000 people across those 20 airport communities in 6 separate waves that were conducted over a 12-month period. So every 2 months, we sent out a sample to randomly across these 20 airports. The survey is shown here on the right, and I know you won't be able to read all the details of that, but the important point here is that embedded in this 13-question survey is one question about aircraft noise. And the question is, thinking about the last 12 months or so, when you are here at home, how much does noise from aircraft bother, disturb, or annoy you? And then the respondents' choices were not at all, slightly, moderately, very, or extremely. And this, again, this is based on survey techniques that have been certified by international committees. This is not a question that we made up. The respondents who responded that they were either very or extremely annoyed from aircraft noise were considered to be highly annoyed. And of the 54,000 surveys that were sent out, we had about 10,000 people respond. Next slide, please. So the noise level or dose, part of the dose response curve, was determined through aircraft noise modeling with the FAA's integrated noise model. those of you who are familiar with noise modeling will know we used traditional modeling techniques. We used at each airport, we used a year's worth of radar data, and then we modeled every flight track and came up with estimates of noise at every survey respondent's location, so that we could then associate the survey respondent's response to the aircraft noise level at their location. The statistical team then developed a logistic regression model relating the aircraft noise levels to the response. This is the same kind of statistical analysis that was done in the past in the FICON research. And so we use the same approach, not only for historic consistency, but also because it provides the best fit to the observed data. Next slide, please. So the resulting national curve, representative curve, is shown here. So it's important to note that this is a curve that is the regression curve through the entire set of data. It's not an average of the 20 airports. The dark line that's shown here in the middle is the curve itself, and the dashed line above and below it represents the 95% confidence interval around those data. And you will see that at a DNL of 65 decibels, the annoyance rate is about 66% of people highly annoyed. You can recall that at the beginning I said that the data that we have been using for the last 30 years had at that same noise level a percent highly annoyed of about 12 or 13%. So it's substantially more people or percent of people highly annoyed based on the results of this data. Next slide, please. This figure shows comparison of the data that we have just collected, the NES data that's shown in black, compared with some historic data. The one on the bottom is the FICON curve, the one that I've been referencing, where you can see that at noise level of 65, the annoyance level is 12 or 13%. The curves in the middle are, one is from the Netherlands Organization for Applied Research, or TNO, and the other is the International Standards Organization, or ISO 2016 results. You can see that the curve that we are presenting here, the NES, is higher even than those more recent studies. And that's for a couple of reasons, one of which is that those ISO curve includes historic data, whereas our NES data is just the brand new results. So the differences in the response levels is something that we are still evaluating. It could be, and most people believe that it's a change in people's attitudes towards noise. It could also be a change in the nature of the noise exposure, differences in the study design, or some combination of all of these factors. But that's one of the follow-on research topics that's being looked at now. Next slide, please. I wanted to let you know that the survey and additional background information can be found on the FAA's website. The link is provided here. The FAA has provided a lot of background information and I think done a very good job of trying to explain this very complicated research. The report itself is over 500 pages long. But the website has some very good summary information. The the report was released through a Federal Register notice, and the FAA is actively soliciting feedback from the public on not only this, the results of this study, but also a broader review of its research agenda and research roadmap. And so they've encouraged folks to comment through the links that are shown here. And those comments will then become part of the Federal Register docket, and FAA will consider all of that input as it looks to refine and advance its research agenda over the next several years. So I would encourage those of you who are interested in providing guidance or input to FAA to avail yourselves of these links. And with that, I will turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
You're muted, Mr. Ortiz, Chair Ortiz.
Sure, people were happy about that, but that I do see some raised hands from the membership. So if we could, let's start with Member O'Connell.
Thank you. I think that was a really eye-opening report on the differences between the current study and the prior studies. One question I have, and maybe you can answer it and maybe you can't. There's the FAA has promised us a noise health study that has been in the works for a long time now. Do we have any information on how that study is going or proceeding?
We are not involved in the health study. I can tell you what I do know about it. The study is underway. FAA, I think actually they've taken a very, I was going to use the word clever, but that's
cautious.
No, actually not cautious. I think they've been very smart and efficient with taxpayer resources in the fact that they have, if you're familiar with large epidemiologic studies, there are a couple of very large ones in the US, one called the Nurses' Health Study in particular that has looked at all kinds of health outcomes and that study has been going on for decades. And the FAA has recently engaged with those researchers and has added noise as one of the measures that's now being tracked to look at all these various outcomes. So, so that project is now underway. I can't comment on when the results will be available, but I know that the research is actively happening at this point. And the research is actually being conducted by Boston University. And they provided a briefing on that. I moderated a panel last year at the UC Davis Symposium, and there was a briefing there on the design of that study.
Great, well, thank you. And it really, your explanation of the slides really was very concise and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. With that, let's go to Member Widmer.
Fine. Thank you very much, Mary Ellen. Nice presentation. I just would like to make a comment, well, actually two. The first comment is, if you had actually surveyed the communities that were also being impacted, just the communities themselves, they probably had noise ordinance that said that it was 60 decibels to 65 decibels was outlawed, okay? And so it doesn't surprise me that the findings that you have. Also, the noise, the number of people now that are being affected by it, well, the communities are becoming denser. And so there are more people. So when you're doing your survey, you say, wow, more people said it was bad. Well, that's because before, people were spread out, so there weren't as many people. So those two, one I think should have been included. just seeing where the communities were saying. But secondly, I think as an explanation is the density that the population is becoming around these big airports. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Member Whitmer. And see Member Pine, Mr. Supervisor. You're muted, Dave.
Thank you for the report. And I was hoping you could comment more about really what happens next. I mean, are we likely to see a reevaluation of the DNL standards? I mean, is this the first step in that direction? And
that's one of that is why the FAA has opened they're looking for feedback on what the public would like them to do with the data. We are not allowed to speculate on where the policy might lead, but certainly this data is likely to feed into a policy discussion.
Any time frame for that, or?
That I don't know. I do know that there have been, various legislative actions. There were a number of requirements from the FAA reauthorization of 2018. Some of them requiring FAA to look at standards and policies. So some of those requirements are outstanding at this point, but they're there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Let's go to Member Schneider.
Thank you. Yet another study all coming out at the same time. Looking forward to reading it. Question, the airports chosen, it seems on a quick run that most of them are flat and stay fairly flat. Were any of the 20 airports similar in the topography that we have here?
I can't answer that off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look at that, but we could take that as an action item.
I would appreciate that. Justin will know that one of the things we think we're finding from the ground-based noise study is our valleys and our slopes are concentrating noise and or attenuating it. So I'd be interested to know. And then I'm assuming that the neighborhoods that were chosen were neighborhoods that fell within existing 65 decibel contours?
That's correct.
So
Yes,
that means that the studies then did not look at any neighborhoods affected by or located behind takeoff, departure areas, and are subjected to low frequency noise.
Well, so the noise levels were not limited to DNL 65. They went as low as DNL 55. So there could have been people who are exposed to ground noise.
Okay, it'd be nice, and maybe by the time we have our next ground-based noise meeting, Justin could give us a little bit of an update, because my take on just hearing this is that there are only 3 houses in Millbrae that count inside the 65 decibel, none in Burlingame, none in Hillsborough, and I don't have the count for San Bruno or South City. So it's hard. It's going to be hard to compare apples to apples for us on that because of that. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Schneider. Member Royce.
Yes, thank you. Mary Ellen, thank you very much. A very interesting report. And some of the questions I was going to ask have already been asked, but I want to understand a little bit more about the context of the responses. Was when the 65 dBs or whatever measurement you're using, at a point in time, or was it over a period of time, or how did you come up with that context?
The noise level was the level that we computed on the day that the person was surveyed, from the data that we had on the input. Using our
was it like a 1 second hit, or was it a 10 second?
No, sorry. We use the FAA's computer noise model, the integrated noise model, if you've seen noise contours, you know that those are produced by a noise model. We used the same noise model, but instead of producing noise contours, we produced the computed level at the respondent's actual location. So at that particular point for the given time period.
Okay. Did your study look at the timing? Was there differences in the timing of the noise versus like morning, afternoon, evenings? Was there a big difference in when people reported annoyance?
We didn't
Did you
have
tell
that
that from your
granular
study?
data. No. The data are looking at a cumulative
And
noise.
then my next question, a little bit.
Sorry.
Okay, cumulative. Okay. Is there I guess my next question is a little bit what Supervisor Pine said. Where is this going? Who's getting this report? Where is it going? And what's the next step on it? And is there a follow-up study based on what you learned from this first study?
The report has been published in the Federal Register and it's on the FAA's website. So that's where it is. Where the research is going will depend on the feedback that FAA gets through this stakeholder engagement process that they have initiated through the Federal Register announcement. So they really are looking to, and they are expecting a pretty broad engagement from roundtables, from the airport community, from the airline community, look in response to this analysis.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm having computer problems. So I'm having trouble hearing you, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Member Weiss and Member Ford.
Hi, thank you, Mary Ellen, for this report. I really liked when you said that one of the results, because the results were so higher than they had been before, that one of the things that was being looked at in change in attitudes towards noise. And commensurate with that, I wondered, because you had a really good return on your sample, people answered your survey, 10,000 out of 34,000 approximately. That's a really good number. But I wondered if only the people who wanted to complain were the ones who responded. And maybe people who didn't notice the noise or didn't care about it didn't respond. Do you have a comment on that?
That issue of selection bias is actually addressed in the report. I'm not a statistician, so I can't speak eloquently to it, but it is something that we looked at.
Okay, and then I had a couple more comments. One is that it's interesting because planes are quieter than they had been traditionally, because we've been working on this issue for years. And also, I'm wondering if when people are frustrated about many other things, which we know lately they have, I know your study was done a little before COVID, but nevertheless, when people are frustrated about things, they might want to complain about something they can complain about, which airports are really perfect for that. So that might be a factor. And they're relatively an easy place to complain. And there's also elevated publicity about noise that there wasn't before. So are those things considered?
Those are all possible factors of why we're seeing increased annoyance. And that, that's one of, I expect some of the follow-on work will be to look into what some of these other factors, non-acoustic factors might be.
Mm-hmm.
If you dig into the report, you will see that in addition to the mail survey, we actually had a follow-up phone survey that tried to get at some of these questions and underlying factors. We have not been tasked by FAA yet with evaluating those results, but we're hoping that will be, to get to Mr. Royce's question, one of the follow-on studies that FAA will want to undertake based on the feedback from the community.
I think that's a good idea. It sounds like a good expansion of the findings. And the last thing, which I think is probably one of the most important things, is the Metroplex rollout, the next gen, that people then had planes flying over in areas where they hadn't flown before. And that was startling, I think, to a lot of people. And and therefore led to a feeling of annoyance over it. Do you think that is a factor too?
I do. And in fact, there has been some research done in Europe looking, one of the European researchers went back and evaluated not our work, but some work that had been done in Europe, where they characterized the situations at the airports that were being studied as airports that were experiencing high rates of change, like a PBN procedure or a new runway or something like that, versus airports where there was a low rate of change, where it was a pretty steady state condition. And they found a statistically significant difference in the levels of annoyance between those high rate of change airports versus the low rate of change airports. So again, that's something that we're hoping to be able to dig into. Among the 20 airports that we sampled, I can tell from just looking at them and knowing what's gone on at those airports that there are some that were undergoing some significant change at the time and some that weren't. But again, we haven't done that part of the analysis yet.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the conversation.
Sure.
Okay, thank you for that, Member Hindi. Or let me ask, Justin, did you have something that was related to this answer? Do you want to add something? You want to wait till after Member Hindi?
I could wait until after Member Hindi. Not a problem.
Member Hindi, please. Or Vice Chair. I'm sorry.
Thank you, no problem. Thank you, Mary Ellen, for your presentation. My original question was similar to Supervisor Spine, and I think for the most part, you probably answered it. How is this going to help us? But I think you touched on that. The second question is, who put the question? Was it the FAA or was it your firm that put the survey question?
We conducted the survey. Well, we were the prime contractor who conducted the survey. The survey itself was actually administered through Westat, which was our subcontractor, and they are a firm that does national surveys all the time. They're not an aviation specific firm. The question itself is a standardized question that has been vetted through International Standards Organization for several decades. So it's a very standard question. So the research that I was talking about that was going on in Europe, they asked the very same question over there. And so that we can compare results in one setting to another.
Thank you. Do you think there's a value to kind of have a question geared toward differential between daytime noise and nighttime noise?
I'm sure that that's something that there would be an interest in that. I think one of the challenges is that if and when you look at the survey questions itself, you'll see that we tried to, or we did embed the question about aircraft noise annoyance among a number of other questions, so as not to signal that we were looking for answers about aircraft noise specifically. So, but I'm not positive, but it's possible that some of the follow-up phone surveys that we have got at that day versus night, and I think that might be the case. But Justin, we could take that as an action to research that in the phone survey.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your answer. I understand also the reason behind it is you don't want to bias the respondents, but I think it'll be helpful because what the feedback that we get and our experiences has been, nighttime noise is really, as you know, amplified and exponentially higher than daytime noise. So it would be interesting if that could be somehow integrated in it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to provide a suggestion to Roundtable members that if they were interested in providing a comment as the Roundtable, that I think the best mechanism to do that would be to do it within the Legislative Subcommittee. And given that the response is due by March 15th, it would likely need to happen rather soon to provide that. But I think that would just be a suggestion that I have to the Roundtable members if they wanted to provide a collective comment to the FAA.
Thank you, Justin. That was kind of my thought is, what do we do next? What do we do with this information and how do we act? And I think that your suggestion is a good one, that the legislative committee get together and talk about how we use the information we have to draft a letter to the FAA. With that, I'm going to, Mariana, thank you for your responses. I'm going to open it now to the public. We are getting kind of late here, so I'm going to ask everybody to please try to keep it short. And with that, let's open it to the public. Angela?
Thank you, Chair. Please, I do see 4 hands raised. I will first call on Darlene Yapley, followed by Mark Scholl. And if we can have members of the public state the city they're calling from. So Ms. Yapley, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Mary Ellen, thank you so much for the presentation. The survey section 10 states that data files are available for further analyses by others. How and where can the noise modeling data in section 10.1 and 10.2 be obtained and assessed? We have, mined through all of the information and we cannot find the public data. My second comment to the roundtable is this survey is significant. It's been 40 years since they updated those annoyance curves. So this is our opportunity. The FAA is soliciting comments and I really support the roundtable responding. I think some key points is we want policy change. We want the significant impact standard changed. And I think we should be careful about, we want more research because we're going to be researched. This has taken 5 years, by the way, just to get this out. So we should do a review of the research that exists and get a recommendation from an independent body. I also would encourage the roundtable to shoot for that March 15th deadline. The roundtable has made comments about the supersonic. This far exceeds the significance to give input on noise policy. The roundtable has standing and should use their standing to make a formal comment. Opportunity knocks, so let's open the door. And I would also say it would be good to have a little bit of some type of open period where people could send something to the roundtable, the Ledge Committee, to give input on the letter because it's going to need to move pretty quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yapley.
I will now call on Mark Scholl, followed by Jennifer. Mark Scholl, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Hi. I want to make a couple of points and comment on things that a couple of members said. One, on Darlene's point, yes, this is a very important study and I would recommend, like she has, people review it. But it would also suggest that you take a look at the new standards or the standards adopted by the EU. We really don't need to reinvent a new COVID vaccine test. We can use, there's a really good model in Europe that would be much, much better. So we can get stuck in the weeds, but there's something to specific to aim for. And I would suggest looking at that as well. Health studies, someone brought that up. I would highly recommend that the roundtable, I have these presentations from these health studies. It's the University of Washington has one, very, very good. They're not about noise. They're about ultrafine sub 2.5 micron particles, which are highly dangerous and long-lived, and they primarily affect people under the concentrated arrival streams. And the initial studies by these major universities are really quite disturbing, and I think something the roundtable should be aware of. I would also point to another study, as this is kind of the subject, that the FAA just finally released, the airport noise mitigation and safety study done by MIT. This actually has a lot of really good data about where noise comes from and where it's changing. And the net of it is, because of geared turbofans, engine noise on departure is decreased dramatically, but not noise related to backblast or arrivals. Those have increased. And this is worth looking at. And in particular, from arrivals perspective, one of the things that is happening is something that's called delayed deceleration, where the noise is the deceleration is shifted to late in the procedure, primarily over locations like Palo Alto and East Palo Alto. And that is something that, you know, we're seeing and have been complaining about and is in this study. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scholl. I will now call on Jennifer, followed by Liz Lopez. Jennifer, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Thank you for that presentation, Ms. Egan. So the coolest thing, and I really appreciate the question about context, the coolest thing about this study for me is that it illustrates how the FAA and all the things that our tax dollars have funded over the years.
I'm sorry, Ms. I think we lost.
So I'm so sorry. Hello, I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
Quickly, that the coolest thing about this study, I believe, is how the context part, the question about context, how there are the capabilities existing that our tax dollars have funded, where we have all this data, where you can actually calculate the noise for the day that the person who answered the survey, and so what they did is they calculated the cumulative noise for that day, for every day of the year. Then they calculated the average, and then they did that twice. And so that's how you do projections of noise. And so you can estimate what your noise can be. You can look backwards, you can look forward. That is the basis of the model. And the data sets that go in, it's in chapter 7 of this 500-page report, is what matters, because later you can calculate any metric, literally. And so that's what matters. It's not, so we can spend a lot of years on the vertical line of our, you know, a reaction, or the horizontal line of which metric to use. But right now the FAA encourages using supplemental metrics, and it's already in noise policy. It's an FAA order 1051F that you, the airports, the communities can request that in the National Environmental Protection Act process. So we really, those are the kinds of things that the public can respond to. And so I encourage everybody to not just think about the future research, but what we can do now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Liz Lopez, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
I thought that was her.
No, that was Jennifer. Sorry.
Hi, this is Liz Lopez from San Francisco. My comment or my question is, how does this change how the FAA and airport officials communicate with members of the public and members of the roundtable? As it is now, they often use the phrase affected. So affected by noise. With NextGen, they did it's my understanding that the FAA told the membership that there would be no one negatively affected by noise. And we are told this with Supersonic as well. No one will be negatively affected by this program. And so my understanding is this has nothing to do with the word affected in the English language. I think it's associated with the 65 DNL, if somebody could correct me if I'm wrong. But how does this change how they use the word affected now that we know that these results change everything? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. And with that, Chair, we have no more hands raised from the public.
Okay, and then you guys, we are running really late here, so we are moving on now to the subcommittee meeting update, and I'm going to keep it. Yes, Mr. Royce.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just real quickly, if there are people that would like to add some comments or have some points they'd like to raise in this letter, if they could please send it, and if I could ask Michelle to gather that, it might save us time sending a questionnaire out or something. So if you have any points you'd like to see made in a letter, please send it to Michelle, and then she'll get it to us, and we'll meet as a legislative subcommittee and talk about it.
And I think Ms. Yapley had some really good comments, and Mr. Schultz, I'm intrigued by the EU standards, so I would love to see those comments. Yeah. So with that, any other member comments before we move on? And having none, then I'm going to move on to subcommittee meeting update. And I really do want to keep the airport presentation because I cut them off last time, so I'm going to keep mine very short. We met as a technical working group and talked about we had a presentation from the airport about the ground-based augmentation system, and then the remote monitoring terminal threshold study. There was many questions and there were details addressed in those meetings. So I encourage any interested parties to look at the materials from that meeting. And with that, I will hand it to Member Schneider to tell us about ground-based noise. And please, let's keep it short so we can fit in the San Francisco Airport presentation.
I appreciate that, Chair, but that's also part of the problem with ground-based noise. It's always given about a minute of the agenda. And after all these years, it's time for us to be taking up a little bit more time. With that, ground-based noise met last week. There are so many new members. Basically, it took Ricardo and me 3 years to create the Ground-Based Noise Committee, another year to put together the concepts of studies. There was a historic study called a spectral analysis. And then thank you to the Roundtable and to Linda and Michelle and Angela for coming up with the scope of work with Justin to do a ground-based noise study, which had been released to us about maybe 2 weeks now. Basically, the Ground-Based Noise Committee wants more time, and Angela sent out an email to all of the members, and I hope that means all of the new members, to look at the ground-based study. It's not actually that big. It's got a lot of data in it, but it's a good time to kind of dive into it. But get your comments back to Justin or back to Michelle by February 19th. At that time, Justin, the consultant with HMMH, will look at our comments and see if any of them can be easily included or modify the existing report. Where the report can't change is if it's going to require additional virtual monitors or additional studies, additional assumptions built into that report. That'll come into the findings of the report. For the people there, basically this modeling, and I thank all of the planning staff from San Bruno, Millbrae, Burlingame, and Hillsborough. They modeled the existing topography, the hills, the slopes, the valleys, the existing buildings, and then ran a series of modeling of noise, low frequency noise as it moves, and then based it on, and Justin, correct me, about 50 feet of vegetation that would be planted along Highway 101 on the west side to see if that collection of plants could buffer low frequency noise before it hit the cities and the neighborhoods. The kind of bad news out of the study is it would only reduce about 3 decibels, which is not something humans can tell the difference for. But again, I look at this on the, we now know a little bit more, and we are going to learn where we have to do some additional work, but that only looked at one area of vegetation. It didn't look at other areas. It didn't look at other noise impacts and other mitigations. So it's just the very beginning of studying low frequency noise in an area that is impacted by noise from at least 5 different transportation agencies. So it's complicated. And I just want, the city of Millbrae has to go on record. The city disagrees with San Francisco's desire to remove a monitor number 8 out of Millbrae or out of that location. We believe it should stay there so that we can continue to compare historical and current data with any future modeling. But I will say, Justin, thank you. Great work. It's another report to dive into. It's like 4 or 5 technical reports for all of us. Really lovely science in action. Justin, do you want to add anything?
You're welcome. No, I think you handled it well. I would say just, yeah, comments by February 19th, if you could, to Angela. And if you could reference the page or figure number or table, that would be really helpful in trying to get responses back quickly. So thank you, Anne.
I would only add that I think the other, and
Yeah.
Al may have more to add. This sounds weird to call it good news, but it finds that the noise does concentrate as it moves uphill. So it's not your distance to the airport, it's actually how the shape of the hills are concentrating noise. And I'm putting it in really simple terms. So it turns out that Hillsborough actually has some of the noisiest experiences way up on the top of the hill. I will also say that when I compared takeoffs from 28 to takeoffs on runway 1, we actually have a savings at Millbrae Central Park by almost 15 decibels, hence the need to really dive deep into this report and try to compare data that may not seem like it fits next to each other.
Great, thank you, Member Schneider. And just to make sure that we're clear, we do have a subcommittee that discusses ground-based noise, where we're a long way from giving a short thrift. So,
Oh, Ricardo, if I could add one more thing for Terry's group. This study used physical, real monitors, and then also created just in 20 virtual monitors, and the modeling estimated what the noise would be there. Chair Ortiz, you had to leave a little bit early, and a member from Burlingame requested more virtual monitors in Burlingame, especially for your neighborhood, I think called Eastern Edition, or behind Ray Park.
right. Very good, thank you. And with that, Michelle, did you say you had something to say about the ground-based augmentation system and the remote monitoring terminal threshold study from the technical working group?
I appreciate it. I do think it's important to report to the larger membership just that subcommittee meeting, and that is that we brought to the subcommittee several San Francisco Airport Commission decisions going back to June, where the CEQA on the GBAS was approved, and that in December there was an approval to purchase, design, manufacture, and install and site test the GBAS system at SFO. They also entered into an agreement with FAA. It was a reimbursable agreement for technical services with FAA. And that one of the things I think at our previous meeting, they had showed changes in the flight paths shown in purple. And the purpose of this meeting was to try to get decibel level information, both from the purple expansion areas and potentially from where the new braking systems were. But at this time, they've only done a single incident noise measurement. So we don't have any cumulative CNEL information that was brought. I think the concerns that are coming up for the subcommittee is that at a previous meeting from SFO staff, they produced a timeline that showed that in January and February, we were going to be able to give feedback. And in March, the airport was supposed to submit their concepts to FAA. So we feel like there's still some missing information that we're still looking to get. And so that's how that meeting was left. And I think on the remote monitoring terminal threshold, SFO hired BridgeNet International to look at 5 of their remote noise monitoring terminals, and they were reviewing the measured noise levels as well as making recommendations on noise thresholds and duration. And so we had MMH took a look at the draft report from BridgeNet in terms of determine consistency with Title 21, look at any gaps of analysis, information, and concerns, and recommending any project alternatives. HMMH did come back with recommended changes, which BridgeNet modified the report, and I think we're still waiting for more information. The reason why this is really important is because San Mateo County has not received a Title 24 report from SFO for over 2 years, and so they're saying that we're waiting for this document to get completed for that to happen. So there's still another, at the next technical working group meeting, these items need to be discussed again to try to get update. Was there anything, Justin, you wanted to comment on that I missed?
Only clarification too is that with the threshold study, we did receive the second revision back from BridgeNet International, and I believe now we have the final version. They did address all of our comments, so we should be able to provide that at the next technical working group meeting.
And so from your perspective, how does this relate to the Title 21 report and or to Ann's comment about relocating the NMT8, because they're using this study to approach Caltrans to modify it, right? And then you have some other concerns about all the other NMTs that they weren't even addressing.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, this study had looked at the Title 21 noise monitors and the thresholds and settings for that, for the new system that's to be accepted. So our focus was related to what was provided in that, which happens to be the Title 21 sites. There are other sites, obviously, throughout permanent sites. And I believe Bert is looking into those and has a variety of different possibilities that him and his team are looking at regarding threshold settings that he was going to bring forward to the roundtable, I believe. But I would let Bert chime in on that if he's online. But yes, I think that's if he's there, I don't know. So yes, I would say we do have the report is complete as it addressed our concerns for those Title 21 sites. However, there's additional sites that have that he's evaluating.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Justin. And I see Member Snyder has her hand raised.
It might fit under Director Sotero's report, but from the city of Millbrae, as we're working on an official letter on the moving of monitor number 8, what would be the time frame of monitor 8 being moved if Caltrain accepts the report as is?
Maybe Bert, do you have an answer to that, or
I do. Right now, we're looking at evaluating potential replacement sites within Millbrae. What we're looking to do is get one that actually correlates well to the airport aircraft noise levels and does not have to be weeded out from the community, the freeway, and the other noise. We just are having a devil of a time distinctively under Title 21 regulations pulling out the noise levels. And you need to be able to do that with 1.5 degree decibel degree of certainty. We just can't do that right now. And we're still looking at other ways of doing it. In fact, right before I jumped on to respond here, I was fielding a email from our system vendor says, oh, we're still looking at it. We're still looking at potential other ways. So we haven't totally abandoned it, but it's just not as clear cut as our other monitors are for being a sufficient Title 21 monitor.
Perfect. Okay. Any other comments, questions from membership? And if not, then we will open it for public comment. Ms. Montes, I see one hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Ortiz. We will call on Mary Jo Fremont. Janice, are you able to display the timer? Thank you. Mary Jo Fremont followed by Jennifer. So Mary Jo, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Three comments, Mary Jo Fremont, Palo Alto. I have 3 comments about GBAS. First, the GBAS overlay. There is some confusion about the CATEX that may not exist. So can SFO clarify if there was or if there will be an environmental review for the GBAS overlay and how the community can get the analysis and results? Second, the GBAS innovative approaches. SFO should not submit anything until the community, which includes this roundtable and the other roundtable, has had a chance to get answers to their questions and provide feedback to SFO on the proposals. The questions submitted by this roundtable on page 20 of your packet and by other community members in December have not been answered yet. So the key question, therefore, is will SFO delay its original schedule, which was to submit the GBAS approaches in February or March? And my third comment is about the FAA, who just published another report in December in response to Section 179, which was part of the 2018 FAA reauthorization bill, and it's related to GBAS. This new report describes a potential solution from MIT, that could really reduce arrivals noise. And this report is fully relevant to GBAS because the physical range of the MIT solution overlaps with the physical range of GBAS. Per MIT, the arrival noise could decrease by 4 to 8 dB for the areas that are 10 to 25 nautical miles away from the runway. And this is per aircraft, 10 to 25 nautical miles away. And your GBAS approaches can start 23 nautical miles away from the runway. So exploiting this geographical overlap could really reduce potentially the noise of arrivals over many communities. And that must be explored. And this will require the FAA to be willing to change where the arrival procedures end, not the ground tracks, just the end of the STAR procedures. So I would therefore recommend for this roundtable to comment on Section 179 report and ask Congress to pressure the FAA to pursue this solution and in particular cooperate with.
I need you to wrap it up.
I will, to allow the airport to design GBAS approaches that can start further back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fremont. Jennifer, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Hi, thank you. In the context where many communities are not represented, and Palo Alto, where so many of the arrivals are, GBAS is going to be affecting Palo Alto. The National Environmental Protection Act really comes in it's a very important process. The FAA has a process which is called the .41 process, where my understanding is the way that communities have a say. The reason that a CADX just cannot be applicable is because it completely eliminates our voice on top of everything else. And an environmental review would give us an actual, framework where we could explore alternatives, because that is one of the items within an environmental assessment, is to look at alternatives and to look at them in real time, not in the manner that the GBAS program has said, oh, we're going to do these overlays, which are really very controversial, and they're not what they sound like. They're not identical procedures. They could be much more harmful procedures. And then say innovative, and that's 5 years from now. That's just not, and also in the context of how there has been zero follow-up for our community, at least from the Select Committee. So I really, this NEPA process is extremely important in the context of everything that has happened and is happening. Lastly, I would suggest some sort of way to differentiate ground-based from the ground-based that Ms. Schneider works on, and the GBAS, which is the landings. Otherwise, just now I heard a lot of it was just all mixed with the noise monitors for ground-based and the augmentation system, which is the landings and arrivals that impact Santa Clara communities, Santa Cruz as well.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any other hands?
Yes, Chair, thank you. I see Ms. Darlene Yapley.
Okay, Ms. Yapley.
To date, San Francisco Airport has not provided responses to the San Francisco Roundtable or the community on all the questions that have been submitted over the last several months. I just have one simple question. Given that the questions have not been answered, is SFO moving forward with the schedule that they've been presenting on their slides, or are they not moving forward, given that we don't have answers to the questions?
Thank you. And we'll have to answer that at another time. We'll just be moving on. Any other public comment?
Chair, of these, we have no more hands raised from the public. Very
good. I'll bring it back to the membership. Are there any questions of the membership before we move on?
I see Bert Canong's hands raised from the members.
You have an answer for one of the questions?
I see two of them, sir, if you don't mind. Wanted to say that the overlay procedures and the equipment are the two CADXs that are out there, and those are both on federal. So there's nothing CEQA involved at this point, and won't be for the time being.
Okay, and
also too, just to let everybody know that the innovative procedures are out there. They're not currently under the items that are being discussed. And the last one would be the timeline. We will adjust if needed, but right now we're plotting towards the far end of the timeline. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the membership? And having none, then we will move on to item number 11. I'll pass it on to the airport director, Mr. Ivor Saduro, and for your presentation. And thank you for staying up late with us.
Okay, thanks, Chair Ortiz. I'll also keep it brief so we can get to my team that's waiting patiently to talk about the noise insulation program. It's a similar story to what I reported last time. We continue to see low levels of passenger traffic. We will finish calendar year 2020 at about 72% down from the prior year, and we currently are trending about 80% down as we enter 2021. We are, of course, financially, I've talked about all of the cutbacks we've made and reductions in our capital program. Those continue to be important tools for preserving cash, and I do see us in a survival mode and continuing to look at aggressive cost reduction efforts and continuing to look at all contracts for potential cost reduction and preservation of cash. We did receive federal funding, as I've reported previously, and we did commit to 21 million rent relief to support our concessionaires. Along with that, we had an obligation for them to support their workers with benefits and wages in an amount of about 30% of the 21 million that we committed to those small business. With the reduction in flight activity, we're off about 50% of the pre-pandemic flight schedules. We're going to take advantage of reconstruction of 28 right. Many of you may remember the 28 left reconstruction that caused lots of delays and late flights into the early morning hours. And we don't anticipate that this will have a similar impact, both because of the reduced flight activity and because of the work we're doing with our airlines to de-peak. Particularly United, to de-peak their flight schedules to the extent possible. COVID testing continues to be important at SFO. We're probably doing 400 to 500 tests a day between the two COVID testing sites that we have, supporting those Hawaii flights, as well as some Cathay Pacific passengers on to Hong Kong. And we are getting other interest from airlines to take advantage of our testing to ensure they can enter other countries that require negative COVID tests. We are looking at the potential for SFO actually supporting a mass vaccination site. We've been looking at the kind of throughput that we could gain at SFO, and it's pretty encouraging. And so we are hopeful that once vaccines become more readily available, SFO could be a mass vac site for the San Mateo and San Francisco and the region. Reporting on new airline service, we did launch Air India to Bangalore. 2 flights a week on a 777. They operate Mondays and Thursdays, arrivals 5 p.m. and depart Tuesdays and Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. Also, United launched a nonstop to Costa Rica 737 aircraft, departs SFO 1 p.m., arrives at 4:25 p.m. Noise insulation, our folks will talk about that, but even with the reductions in the capital program of about $2 billion, we're still committed to the noise insulation program and taking full advantage of federal dollars to the extent possible. And then GBAS, fully committed to GBAS as well, and the innovative procedures that we are all hopeful have community benefit. I certainly take the points of the public that has expressed concern about that, and I want to assure everyone that there will be the appropriate level of community engagement. I understand the issue around the CADEX on the installation and the overlays. I will be looking into that a bit more to understand that better. But we do believe this is an opportunity, and we're continuing to move forward with this without pause. But I do want to reassure the community that whether you're a member of the Roundtable or not, I heard the Palo Alto complaint that you will have that opportunity to participate in the design of the approaches. Be glad to answer any questions.
Let's try that again without the mute. Any questions of the membership? I see Vice Chair Hindi. And go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ivor. Follow up on your comment about having the public having enough time for input on the GBAS. I think the concern that I heard from members of the public is once the task moves to the FAA, it's pretty much the public input is muted at that point and it's not going to be taken into consideration. When do you see the public to be engaged into this process?
Thanks for the question, Vice Chair Handy. The team is preparing, what I've asked the team to do is prepare a presentation of what the plan is for community engagement. So we are delayed. It will take through the end of the year, I believe, at least for the overlays, and then the more esoteric designs will follow that. So I am committed to presenting a plan for the community engagement in coordination with the FAA.
Great,
thank you.
And I see a hand raised from one of our SFO team members, Napur Singha.
Thank you, Chairman Ortiz. I wanted to make a point, clarify a point. I think there's some misunderstanding, perhaps. The CADEX, the CEQA that was done was actually for the equipment installation. It is not on the flight procedures, whether regular or innovative ones. We will not do a CEQA on that flight procedures because it is not our jurisdiction to do so. And we will not do a NEPA on flight procedures because that again is not our purview. So I just want to make that clear to everybody. But absolutely what Ivar said, that it is absolutely true. The innovative procedures will continue and we'll put a plan forward with the team, work with the roundtable to get that engagement that everybody's wanting. I just wanted to make that clarification. I think the CEQA is not about the flight procedures. The CEQA is just to put the equipment in the ground.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Member Schneider, I see your hand raised.
Director Sotiro, I wish you the best of luck with the mass vaccination site. I don't know where you're planning it on the airport. I assume that the managed lanes program has told you they're shutting down 101 and diverting traffic through San Bruno and Millbrae. My guess is vaccinations will happen after that. But if you could just keep Millbrae and possibly San Bruno aware of what happened so we don't have that Uber Lyft problem.
Thank you. Will do.
Thank
but
you.
Good luck there. And thank you.
With that, any other questions for the airport director from the membership? And if not, then I do see a hand raised from the public. So we'll go to the public comment. Ms. Montes.
Thank you, Chair Ortiz. We will call on Jennifer.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I don't understand why CEQA is getting confused with the NEPA process and when you put together CEQA with overlays, because overlays are a NEPA term or an FAA term that has been used to use CADEXs, which have to do with the airspace procedures. If there are CADEXs, are there or are there not CADEXs for the overlays? Because if there are, that means that it's game over for the public and there is no such thing as the public participating in the design of approaches, because you've already concluded without letting the public know even what you're doing, that we're not going to have a voice on the GLS procedures that are currently on the IFP gateway. So in addition to this whole mess, it's even more confusing when you mix CEQA and the equipment and the GLS procedures. I cannot imagine that those are tied. And I would appreciate and see and hear from Favi, if you're there, if you can perhaps explain whether there has been a declaration of a CADEX or not on the 4 GLS procedures. And, you know, it's that simple. GLS procedures on the IFP gateway, do they have a CADEX or not? very separate from CEQA. CEQA has nothing to do with the National Environmental Protection Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public?
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Chair of Please. We do. I have a hand raised from Mary Jo Fremont.
Okay.
So Ms. Fremont, please accept this request.
Marie-Jo Fremont from Palo Alto. Yes, I want to emphasize that we're confused because we've been asking for this for months, maybe years even. So I completely understand the clarification from Ms. Sinha. Thank you. So the question is for the FAA and SFO, because someone proposed this GBAS overlay, where is the environmental review that was done? It must have been done. We have never seen it. We will be impacted because there will be more concentration, and it is just amazing that we have the FAA involved with all these roundtables. We have the airport who wants to do community engagement. We speak, we ask, we really collaborate with you. And here it is, we're discovering that in October 2021, the GBAS overlay is going to be starting, and we still don't know where's the environmental review. So please, can someone, the FAA, because it is their domain, can you tell me where is that environmental review? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fremont. And with that, Chair Ortiz, we have no more hands raised from the public.
Thank you. And you know what, I'm going to just let the airport director, I'm going to let your team finish the presentation before we take any more questions. So let's just, if you mind, we can move on. You're muted, Mr. Sauter.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks. Next item, we've got the update on the noise insulation program. So I think our team is on the line.
Very good. And Mr. Moreno, I really, I'm sorry about the last time. I apologize, and I'm glad to have you here this time.
No worries. Thank you for having me again. Let me set this up. Let me know if you guys can see my screen.
We can see your screen.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Luis Moreno. I am a project manager at San Francisco International Airport. I co-manage the noise insulation program with Derek Homer. We work with a consultant team, the Jones Payne Group and C. Kell Smith and Associates, to manage the noise insulation program. And today, I'm going to give a brief presentation about how we are restructuring, fast tracking, and rebranding our SFO noise insulation program. As a brief introduction, per our airport director, Iva Sotero's request, the NIP has been restructured to maximize resources and make the program more efficient. This is to better serve our community and prove that we are committed to the well-being of our neighboring cities. And before I start talking about the different efforts that we've been pushing, I thought it'd be important to give a quick breakdown of the noise insulation program to better understand the different initiatives. At the very top level, we have the noise insulation program. But the main core lies in the sub-programs, which is the Second Chance program, which is the FAA Airport Noise Program, which is partially federal funded. But we also have the Replacement Initiative program, which is 100% operating funds. And also, as far as we know, the first of its kind nationwide. I'll talk a little bit more about each of the programs. This is just very high level. Each sub-program has different phases. Currently, we have the 2016, 2019, and 2020 grant under the Second Chance, and the Replacement Initiative has the pilot program and the 175 design lead, which the name is currently misleading because we've since then added 100 additional homes to that initiative. At the bottom, you can see the number of units that we're trending for each of those initiatives. And it's clear to say that the 2016 grant is currently in the closeout stage, meaning we've completed that program. We've already submitted our paperwork to the FAA and just waiting their approval. But what I've circled on the dashed line is actually what we are currently trending to date. We're trending the 2019 and the recently accepted 2020 grant, which was awarded in September of last year. And then under the Replacement Initiative, we have the pilot and the 175 design lead, which again, I mentioned is 275 actually. But all that to say that we're currently trending 450 units or shortly shy of 450. It's like 439 and a $17.5 million budget, which is a great revamp since what we were doing in the past. And with that said, I'm going to jump into the Second Chance program, which is the original 1981 FAA Airport Noise Program. Here, I want to show briefly the different phases and the financial share that SFO has. So we have the 2016 grant, which again has wrapped up last year. Currently, we're on full force with the 2019 FAA grant, which we are trending 71 residences. 40 of them are starting construction in May. And we recently accepted the 2020 grant, which is 55 residences. I do want to point out SFO's continuous commitment and growing supportive financial share. So in 2016, we had a 22% SFO share, but our recent grant is up to 50%. So we're definitely committed to the success of the program. In our 2020 grant, which is our most recent, we had budget for 55 properties. We had a very low initial response rate of about 11%. So we really stepped out into our efforts by doing initial mailing, door tagging. We then went and conducted a block rounding effort, which was in accordance to the FAA. It was reviewed and approved by the FAA. And what that did is it saw the homes that laid in the contour line on the gray area of the 65 CNEL line. And so we were able to grab more homes and more participants through that effort. We've also been working around the COVID-19 situation, and we were able to bring in an industrial hygienist to help us review our health and safety protocols. The reason why we're doing this, we want homeowners to feel safe and secure as we are approaching and entering their homes. And not to mention FAA updates and collaboration. We've been diligently working and keeping up to date with FAA requirements to make sure that we are meeting the deadlines. And then jumping into replacement initiative, which again, as I mentioned, we're very proud to talk about this program because as far as we know, it's the first of its kind nationwide. No other airport is doing this, which is basically going back to repair or replace eligible failing or defective improvements installed in previous phases of the NIP. And a high level breakdown of the replacement initiative, because it can get a little complicated. We have received up to 869 applications to date. Out of those 869, 496 have been deemed eligible, and we're still reviewing about 131 applications. We have then kicked off the program through our pilot program, which includes 38 units. We're starting construction in April of this year. And then again, I mentioned that back in November, we really pushed our efforts, and through restructuring our priorities and increasing staff, we've been able to add what we call the 175 design lead, which since then, actually last month, we approved an additional design of 100 homes. So that number has now bumped up to 275 units under this effort. And we're focusing on the design of completing 275 units this fiscal year, which for us ends in July, and starting construction next fiscal year, which again will be the beginning of July. We've been able to do this by restructuring our procurement process. And not to get too technical, but we are issuing a master as needed contract, which is a 5-year contract that pre-qualifies contractors, giving us the flexibility to move into construction more rapidly as design is being finished. And another great effort that we've been pushing very, very strongly is we've been diligently working on the NIP website improvements. We are working with our ITT and Marketing Communications Department to improve the user experience of the NIP website located within Fly SFO. We're very excited to talk about the homeowner application tracking service, which would allow applicants to go online and have a 24/7 access to their application. And what they would do is they would put their application ID, and now they would receive a status of where they are in the process. Not only would they receive a status, but they would also see a timeline and the duration of the phase that they're in, so that we are more transparent in the way that we provide services to homeowners. And just to summarize, trying to wrap things up, this is a summary of the pushes that we've been doing very high level. We've strategized procurement methods, again, with our pilot program issuing an informal contract that allows us to skip the commission approval process. Then for subsequent phases of the replacement initiative, we've worked to set up a master as needed contract. And what we're doing is we're issuing 3 $2 million contracts in the duration of 5 years that, again, would allow us to move into construction more rapidly. We've also been adapting and planning around the COVID-19 situation, working with local San Francisco and San Mateo County health orders, as well as bringing an industrial hygienist to help through that process and making our participants feel safe. Safety is, after all, our #1 priority. And then again, we've added the 175 design lead, which now totals 275 homes, with construction starting as early as July of next year. And again, this has all been possible through the increased resources of our SFO staff. Not only have I myself as a project manager, but Derek Homer, another project manager, but the program itself has been reorganized to live under the planning department. And so not only through SFO's resources, but also through our consultant resources, we've been really pushing to max out the program. And again, as I mentioned, our flysfo.com is getting a revamp on the user interface by providing the application tracking service, as well as a data tracking information, which we're very excited to release, hopefully at the end of May. And I kind of flew through that, but if you guys have any questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer them to the best of my knowledge. And these slides have also been mailed out. So if there's anything that I went too fast, hopefully you can receive a copy of this slide.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Moreno. And with that, Mr. Sardoro, do we have one more presentation from your team?
We do. The WebTrack app reports.
Yep. We can go forward with that, and then we'll take questions afterwards.
We'll go quickly.
Thank you.
This one will be exceptionally fast. So we presented back in November, October, the rollout of our noise app. We've worked with the EnviroSuite, our services provider for our system, made the major changes that needed to be done on the back end. We'll be rolling it out again via community workshops, and we'll be interfacing with roundtables, we'll be interfacing with community groups and the community activist groups. That way we can get their direct feedback and tailor any final changes that we need to. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. And then with that, I will open it up to membership to see if we have any questions. I see Member Schneider with a question.
This is to Mr. Moreno. So glad that you're moving forward. You are talking about replacing windows that have failed. Is that only in those homes that are in the current 65 decibel and not those homes that were in the old 65 decibel contour?
That's a great question. And we are replacing, the replacement initiative does follow the FAA guidelines, but we are replacing the homes that were in the previous phases of the NIP.
And how far does that go back, the previous NIP?
If your home was treated in the past, then you qualify for replacement initiative.
Excellent. So I have some residents who live on Cuarto, right at the end of runway 1 left, I believe. Their windows can't open. They keep a crowbar in case there's a fire, and they're in their 80s to be able to break out of the house. Can I get them on that list?
I would highly encourage you to, yes, ask them.
You have made my night. Thank you so much. That's actually really incredible. Thank you.
Good.
I know it's still competitive, but for this elderly couple, our former parks director, golly, yay. Thanks.
We're happy to be here and happy to be of service.
Happy at least one person smiling after the meeting. So Mr. Member Diego, I see your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Ricardo. I just wanted to echo Ann's comments. Mr. Moreno, this is the great news we've been waiting for. I remember the evening where Director Sotero mentioned that he had received $1 million from the Airport Commission, and I thought to myself, $1 million. But it is remarkable what you've been able to put together, Ivar, and on behalf of the citizens of South San Francisco that are going to benefit, so greatly from this, your commitment to revisit something that, as you mentioned, no other airport in America is doing. We've got to create some kind of a memorial or a trophy for you. Ivar, I'm very thankful.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions, comments from membership? And having none, then Ms. Montes, we could open it up to public comment. I don't see any raised hands.
Thank you, Chairman Ortiz. And I also do not see any raised hands from members of the public.
Very good. With that, then we'll bring it back to final comments from the membership. I just want to say thank you to the airport director, Mr. Moreno. Thank you for sticking with us and coming back even after what we did last time. So appreciate your presentation. Thank you all. Any last comments from membership? And having none, then thank you very much. And we will move on to item number 12, which is Mr. Justin Cook, an update on aviation noise issues.
Pardon me, Chair. I would just like to say that Ms. Newport has her hand raised.
I wanted to add something to answer some of the comments that were brought up about the overlays and the flight procedures. So there are two flight procedures. So there's flight procedures that currently SFO is following. And those ones that are going to be implemented will not deviate at all from current flight procedures. So that one doesn't have any FAA requirements, a NEPA requirement, because they exactly follow the path that we do today. The innovative procedures that we're going to start coordinating with the community, that one currently does not have a requirement to do an FAA NEPA, because this is the understanding, unless the roundtable and the community approves the procedure, it is never going to go into a FAA procedure. So that is the commitment we have, is that the innovative procedures will be brought to the roundtable, and unless it gets full approval, it is never going to go up to that point. That is why you haven't heard anything on that front.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification. And I see Mr. Moreno has his hand raised. Do you have some further comment?
Yes, I do have a further comment. I'm sorry. I think the previous question from Ms. Schneider, I misinterpreted. And just to clarify the question, or to clarify my answer, and sorry to burst any bubbles, but our replacement initiative program is meant to replace any home that was treated in the past, but it does have to fit the current 65 decibel contour line. So I'm sorry, Ms. Schneider, I misunderstood that. It took me a minute to process what the question was.
I understand. Is there a way that we could, outside of the roundtable, talk about this? Because as one of our Palo Altans reported, whereas stage 4 and 5 engines are quieter, they are not quieter in terms of low frequency noise. So actually these neighborhoods are getting noisier, not less noisy, even with the reduction in frequency of flight. So if we could talk offline and I can figure out what I can try to do to help these neighborhoods, I'd really appreciate it. It may take more time, but oh darn.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you for trying.
And again, we are now closed with item 11, and we're moving on to item number 12, which is an update on aviation noise issues from Mr. Justin Cook from our technical consultant, HMMH.
Thank you, Chair Ortiz. So I'll just give I'll be brief. I know we're close to 10 o'clock here. So IFP Gateway review, in our January 11th review, there weren't any updates necessarily. And the last publication was January 28th on the IFP, and we are currently reviewing those items set to we'll get that report to the roundtable soon. In terms of noise news, which is in your packet, we provided a summary of additional information on the neighborhood environmental survey, which Mary Ellen touched on this evening. And we also went over some information on the supersonic aircraft standards for certification, NPRM. Additionally, we touched on some of the results or takeaways from the MIT noise research report, which was a FAA report on aircraft or airport noise mitigation and safety. As Mary Jo stated actually earlier, one of the findings was that delaying deceleration of the aircraft on approach could reduce noise between 4 to 8 dB and 10 to 25 miles from touchdown. There are actually additional works being conducted to validate some of these potential noise benefits and resolve some of the implementation challenges. One of the last items that I wanted to mention was late in December, 17 members of the Quiet Skies Caucus urged the then Biden-Harris transition team, asking them to consider willingness to work on airplane noise issues when deciding FAA appointees, listing several key positions where awareness of noise issues would be important. And that was signed by 17 members of the Quiet Skies Caucus, one of them being Jackie Spear's office. So just thought I would bring that to attention. And as always, if you have any questions when reading noise news or anything technical, noise related to those new members out there, I am happy to assist, and you're always welcome to shoot me an email or ask me a question during the meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Justin, for that. And members, do we have any questions for Justin on his presentation? And then having none, then Ms. Montes will go to public comment. It looks like there's a few hands raised.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Ortiz. I do have 3 hands raised. I will first call on Jennifer, followed by Darlene Yapley. So Jennifer, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Thank you. I would like to just clarify some earlier comments I made about CEQA and NEPA. CEQA is the California standard, right?
Jennifer, I'm sorry, the public comment right now is for relating to.
Oh, okay, sorry. I meant to say that this is related to the IFP gateway, because the comments about the IFP gateway are the procedures that are about to be published. And I also wanted to just clarify that it's FAA NEPA that I'm referring to about the rules. And everything that is on the IFP gateway, it's just shocking that it's talked about as if the communities are receiving real input or real information. But in fact, these backdoor things and the FAA helping themselves to a CADX for these GLS procedures, it's just egregious, given that they've been sitting on this report that we heard about, the NES report, for about 4 or 5 years already. And knowing that significant impact, which is how they calculate a CADX, it's incredible that they're pulling, you're pulling another next gen using these old antiquated rules and stuff, and everything that we've worked on for the last 6 or 7 years into just the waste bin, because nothing we've said has been heard. And doubt very much that you'll ask for an environmental review instead of those CADXs that have been published, which have not been made available to the public, right? You're not going to ask for that because you don't think that localities have a say, except when you decide that you're going to have a say about something. Anyway, this is just a ton of disrespect of the public and the people that don't even know that this is happening. And so I'm just shocked at the way this has been presented.
Thank you. We had the next public comment.
Yes, Ms. Darlene Yapley, followed by Mary Jo Fremont.
I want to flag 2 items to Justin and the technical working group. On the IFP gateway, there's a publication date of June 17th, 2021. The first item is called Point Reyes 3-star. Is this related to Bodega, and will it affect any of the cities on the peninsula? The second one is the Star Bricks RNAV 3. Is this related to the Big Sur overlay? Is this part of arrivals? Is this going to affect any cities on the Roundtable and in the peninsula? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yapley. Ms. Mary Jo Fremont.
Mary Jo Fremont from Palo Alto. This is about the new proposed supersonic rule. Last June, this roundtable sent a letter to FAA Administrator Dixon, And because it was concerned that the then proposed rule was a step backwards, and one recommendation was to require that the new supersonic planes be as quiet as subsonic planes or even quieter, including meeting or exceeding the stage 5 requirements. So my question is, did the FAA address the roundtable concern from the June 2020 letter in the new proposed rulemaking for supersonics? My understanding is that the FAA is obligated by law to address submitted comments not as a direct response to each submitter, of course, but the FAA must state that they have considered and addressed the comments in their new rule. So I'm not sure they did. This new rule mentions, for instance, an operating cruise speed of Mach 1.8. You can see this on page 113 of your packet. What happens before and after the cruising altitude? Will supersonic planes be subjected to the same stage 5 noise standards as subsonic planes? Not that these current noise standards are so great at protecting people on the ground, but at least they offer some level of protection. So I would therefore recommend for this roundtable to ask your consultant to check whether the FAA addressed your June 2020 concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fremont. And with that, Chairman Ortiz, we have no more hands raised from the public.
Very good. Okay. And with that, any final comments from Mr. Cook? And with that, thank you, Mr. Cook, for your presentation.
You're welcome.
We will move on to item number 13, which is member communications or announcements. Any members have anything they want to share with the rest of the class? Having none, I don't see anybody. And with that, then we will move to adjourn. I want to thank you all. Once again, welcome all the new members and apologize for all the technical jargon. We will try to make it, pass it on to you what all this stuff means. I'm going to have to go back and check on a few things myself. So I appreciate you all staying up late with us, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.
Keep safe, everyone.
Yeah, good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.